You know, I think I liked you better when you lost your temper. At least then you were pretending to care.
Don't forget your toothbrush.
You're so cool, aren't you, Dylan? Nothing affects you, right?
You spent the night with that guy to get a reaction out of me? You got one. Isn't what you wanted?
I wanted to feel safe. Is that too much to ask? I just want to know that if I give you something, you're not just going to take it and run. That's the least you could do.
I don't think I can do that.
Moon Men on the Beat.
I hate you.
Allow me to paint a picture. A young woman, beautiful, talented, intelligent, in the prime of her life. She's gone all these years being told by men that you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, you couldn't be good enough. Not only that, she's an immigrant. So she's had to deal with racism, xenophobia, just bigots everywhere on top of the woman thing. She's an animal rights activist, entertainer, foreign language expert. She's on the only platform that's available to video creators, trying to make a buck, trying to get by, trying to do what we all want to do, us YouTubers. So what do you do when the only platform for making video tells you no? You're an immigrant woman, you're trying to just, feed yourself and your family. What do you do in that situation? It's a shame.
You know, I think I liked you better when you lost your temper. At least then you were pretending to care.
Don't forget your toothbrush.
You're so cool, aren't you, Dylan? Nothing affects you, right?
You spent the night with that guy to get a reaction out of me? You got one. Isn't what you wanted?
I wanted to feel safe. Is that too much to ask? I just want to know that if I give you something, you're not just going to take it and run. That's the least you could do.
I don't think I can do that.
Moon Men on the Beat.
I hate you.
Allow me to paint a picture. A young woman, beautiful, talented, intelligent, in the prime of her life. She's gone all these years being told by men that you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, you couldn't be good enough. Not only that, she's an immigrant. So she's had to deal with racism, xenophobia, just bigots everywhere on top of the woman thing. She's an animal rights activist, entertainer, foreign language expert. She's on the only platform that's available to video creators, trying to make a buck, trying to get by, trying to do what we all want to do, us YouTubers. So what do you do when the only platform for making video tells you no? You're an immigrant woman, you're trying to just, feed yourself and your family. What do you do in that situation? It's a shame.
You know, I think I liked you better when you lost your temper. At least then you were pretending to care.
Don't forget your toothbrush.
You're so cool, aren't you, Dylan? Nothing affects you, right?
You spent the night with that guy to get a reaction.
Come to the Cave of Time.
I'll give you pleasure.
It's the Cave of Time live stream and podcast. We got Mike, student of big dick centrism.
Welcome
We
to
got
the
Jason,
Cave of Time.
student of crypto fascism. Today we're covering a very important book. We are covering Propaganda by Edward Bernays. Mike, what did you think of this book?
I liked it. Very positive reviews, very positive things to say. It's a quick read. It's not too long, and it's not too complicated. I don't think it's a little dry, but 72 years after it was written, a lot of the concepts are very easy to understand and see in our society, and the examples make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's easy to follow. It's easy to digest, and it's very interesting because I think it. You can see it in like multiple facets of our society in today's life, and we'll get into all that, I hope.
So this book is about the masterminds who lead us to think what we think. So if you've never had big ideas that you held or opinions that you have over time change, then you probably haven't done much personal growth, and maybe this episode won't be as interesting to you.
Yeah,
but
maybe
perhaps,
go read a fucking book and don't listen to YouTube.
But Mike, perhaps the content of this episode will make a big idea or opinion that someone has listening change, and maybe we can do that for them.
Yeah, maybe. Actually, I kind of hope so.
Yeah, I mean, so the contents of this book, it's not anything terribly new to me. I've been aware of Edward Bernays for a while, but one of the things that I used to think is that people were guided and made their decisions based on facts, logic, and reason. That was just one of the ways in which I saw the world. Now, one of the interesting things was me waking up to this not being true was the Jimmy Kimmel Show, believe it or not, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of people wake up to the Jimmy Kimmel Show.
No, because he has this segment. It's called Lie Witness News. And they go up and they just talk to random people on the streets about things that aren't true. And they'll say like, "Oh, what is your opinion?" Like they'll go up to like people at a music festival and they're like, "What do you think of this band with a ridiculous name?" And they'll act like
that doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually sent you a link to one of the videos in your Telegram chat if you want to pull it up, and I'll play that for the viewing audience. This is the Jimmy Kimmel staff asking random people on the street what they think about Canada becoming America's 51st state. So let me just get that on screen there. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
The news when you heard Canada's becoming a 51st state.
Surprised, honestly. I was a little surprised by it. I didn't know they wanted to be part of it, but they want to become part of the United States. If they're willing to help us out, we can help them. I don't see what the problem is.
What was your reaction to first hearing that Canada is becoming the 51st state?
I was actually shocked. I mean, from all the countries they could choose from, they went with Canada. That was kind of surprising to me.
What does Canada have to benefit now that they're going to be a 51st state?
Our freedoms. And
one other thing about America.
our guns.
So, I mean, they're all laughing throughout this, right? Like, they're all laughing.
Yeah.
To me, this is not funny at all. This is scary.
Well, okay. All right, go ahead. Why is it scary? What's so scary about this?
Well, I mean, first of all, it just went against how I have historically seen the world. And even up until recently, I was like, you know what? Maybe these things are staged. Maybe these people are kind of, paid ahead of time to be like, how about you just make a fool of yourself with this and everything? But I've actually since been paying more attention to, the people around me and what they do. And I actually know people who behave this way.
Who do this all the time,
Yeah.
So it doesn't scare me as much. I know this is edited, so I know they probably ask 100 people, and then they just take the best ones that are the stupidest things that to make it look way worse than it is.
Okay, even if you spent like 3 days doing nothing but recording, and those were only the best ones, and I only played you a small segment of this one segment of things. Like they actually, this is a regular segment that they do. But even if just one of their segments was a couple days worth of footage, and they only selected the most ridiculous ones, it's still pretty mind blowing to me, or at least it was.
Have you seen the similar show they did in the Canadian show called 22 Minutes with Rick Mercer? Where he'll go and ask, it's called like Ask an American or something. And he'll go and he'll be like, hey, Canada wants to join your war effort, but we don't have access to water. Do you think it would be okay if America kept our ships in your Navy ports? They're like, yeah, that would be great. Like Canada should totally do that. And obviously, like if you know anything about geography, Canada touches 3 oceans. Like who could think that?
Yeah.
Especially if you live in America, right? Or they'll say things like, hey, I've heard you've been having problems with your elections with was it George Bush and Al Gore? Maybe you guys should try the Canadian system. And they're like, oh, what's that? It's like, well, we just throw pine cones in like a big pile, and then we count the pine cones at the end. And they're like, oh, that's very quaint. Like, that's very interesting. Maybe we should give that a try. So if you study psychology, like at all, you'll know that a lot of people do this kind of thing. When they're put on the spot, their immediate reaction is just to give an answer. It's not, they don't think about it. They're not trying to sound intelligent. It might not even reflect what they feel. It's just there's a camera shoved in their face and they have to give an answer. And it's like a lot of it's just uncomfortable and they want to just say something. Right? So.
I mean, I don't know. Okay, I guess. But if pressed, like they will still move forward and say they actually believe it until they're like found out is wrong.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people shoot from the hip every single day on almost every opinion they hold, really, to be honest. Like, people are much more motivated by subconscious thoughts and feelings than they are by like reason and logic, like you said. So when you first find this out, it's kind of like, oh fuck. But I think it's more of a mind-blowing moment when you find out how much you are motivated that way than everyone else, you know? Because you think you're like, well, I'm not like that. I'm not like that. I'm reasonable.
Yeah, no,
but really
I totally agree. I totally agree. But like, I just put a ribbon on that.
Before we go on, is my internet connection okay? Because it's raining right here. Do I need to switch?
It's been okay. It stuttered once or twice, but we're looking okay right now.
All right. Let's go on then.
Cool. Yeah. So it just like opening up your mind and like seeing that the way humans make their decisions isn't as simple and pretty as we tend to think it is just in our everyday lives. It kind of opens up your ideas or your mind to some of the ideas in this book. So the author, Edward Bernays, he died fairly recently. He died 1995.
105 years old.
Yeah. Old guy. Born in 1891. Pioneer in the field of propaganda. Life magazine called him one of the 100 most influential 20th century Americans. So this is a pretty influential guy, if you would listen to Time magazine or Life magazine on that. So this guy actually, for those of you who don't know him, he is the man responsible for women starting smoking in the late 1920s and early 1930s. Previous to this guy manipulating public consciousness, it was not cool for women to smoke. Women did not want to smoke.
People did not want women to smoke.
Yeah.
Men didn't want women to smoke.
Yeah. And this guy's advertising campaigns, his propaganda, he basically associated cigarettes with
feminism.
Yeah, we could put it in a nutshell in that, for sure. Yeah. He was a speechwriter and advisor for a number of U.S. presidents. Hitler asked Bernays to work with him. He refused. Also, a lot of very influential family members. Sorry?
Yeah. Probably a good move, refusing Hitler. Didn't work out well for Adolf.
Well, maybe if you had Bernays over there, it would have.
Oh, maybe. Well, I mean, Hitler was a master propagandist, right? I'm sure he read Bernays' work, and I'm sure he could have used more people like Bernays. Would have had a better time.
Yeah.
So famously, I guess the most famous person you would have heard of is his nephew. I don't have his name handy. Do you have his name?
Yeah, Sigmund Freud.
No. The Netflix.
So yeah. I mean, most people who are listening to this are not going to know that guy's name anyway. But his great nephew, he's the great nephew of the co-founder and CEO of Netflix, or the first CEO of Netflix. His great-grandfather, chief rabbi of Hamburg. So, I mean, this guy's very well connected in his familial lines to power structures throughout the world, right? He described the massive...
So hold on. So we kind of glanced over it. His uncle is Sigmund Freud, and it's his uncle on both sides. So it's his father's sister married Sigmund Freud, and his mother was Sigmund Freud's sister. So he was 2 times a nephew of Sigmund Freud.
Yeah, which is unusual to say the least.
No, that's not that unusual. Double cousins.
Is it not? I don't know. It's the first time I've heard of it.
One of my one of my stepkids. Two of my stepkids are double cousins.
Okay.
I'll tell you later. But yeah. It's like a brother and sister marry a brother and a sister, and then.
So like his big thing.
It'd be like if you married my sister and I married your sister.
Oh, is that okay? I mean, that's still pretty rare.
It's but it's not like, oh my god, that's the weirdest thing ever. It happens.
His big thing and like the thrust of this book is he describes the masses as irrational and subject to herd instinct, which isn't really disputed these days. Sorry.
Can we get into this for? Well, I mean, keep cutting you off, but like the amount of people that are angry about his description of human beings, it's just unbelievable. Like every single person that I listened to who either reviewed this book or talked about Edward Bernays' ideas is just like disgusted and mortified that he thinks that people are like sheep and easily to manipulate and don't think well in groups. And it's like that's so obviously true. I couldn't believe.
It's pretty well documented at the.
I couldn't believe they were like, oh, so he thinks we're a bunch of fucking idiots and like we can't make decisions for ourselves. And it's like, yes, you are, because you're human. You're so infallible. Like, yeah, obviously, we'll get into that a little later.
Okay, I mean, yeah, we can, because to some extent I do agree with them actually, but just to keep going with what his thrust is with the book. So he describes the masses as irrational, subject to herd instinct. And then he outlines how skilled practitioners, which he views himself as, could use crowd psychology and psychoanalysis to control them in desirable ways. So Bernays is an important name for a lot of different reasons that we'll get into. But he is just one name in a long list of shadowy architects of our culture. And not just in the West, but in the entire world.
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the main points to get from this, I think he accurately defines propaganda as neither negative nor positive. It's just a thing that you have to come to grips with. It's a thing that exists. It's neutral until you act on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, well, I mean, language is whatever we make it to be. If you want to split up the word cow into, cows that have more than 10 black spots on them and call those cow X's, and if you have cows with less than 10 black spots on them, then call them cow Y's. Like you can define language in any way you want to do it. If you search on Google for what the difference between, say, propaganda and public relations is, the top result is propaganda is one-way communication aimed at exclusively profiting the sender and manipulating the receiver's response and behavior. Public relations, on the other hand, is a two-way communication process, the goal of which is to be mutually beneficial to both the organization and its publics. So he didn't make that distinction.
Can I read a third definition here?
Yeah, sure.
So this is the definition of activist education. Activist education is conducted by and with activists, is openly interested in the processes of change making and utilizes education methods that affect justice-oriented social change. We use the expression activist education to describe our work.
And how would you say that's relevant? Sorry?
It's propaganda. Like that's propaganda for activism. Right? Like there's multiple things that we see in our lives where people disguise it as something else, and it's just propaganda. Education is one of them.
Oh, I mean, this is tying into something that I was going to get up later, because I think we have a different. Okay.
Go on.
Okay.
I keep cutting you off.
No, because we could get into that now, but yeah, let me just. So there was that top Google result. It's the definition of propaganda versus the definition of public relations. Bernays doesn't make that distinction, and funny enough, Bernays is actually the one who created the term public relations. Yeah. And he did that because the term propaganda was getting such a bad rap. And so, okay, he had the term propaganda, got a bad rap. That term is actually a fairly recent term too. It didn't exist until the early 1900s. And then he came up with the term public relations. The term public relations has then since got a bad rap in the Nixon administration. Some of his public relations experts got arrested. and public relations then had like a, not as bad as the term propaganda, but the term public relations had a bad rap. So then all these different offshoots came out, and Bernays has this list of different things that are all essentially propagandists. So there's public relations, obviously, director of government relations, director of the Office of Communication and Public Affairs, manager of regulatory affairs, president of public affairs, manager of state relations, personal planning manager, public issues director, public policy analysis director, public external affairs director, political program directors. All these things are
and
essentially.
I'm sure if he were alive today, he would use like brand ambassador.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like what's Hermione Granger from
Are you bringing up a Harry Potter reference right now?
That actress. What's her name?
I don't know.
The famous one?
I don't know.
She's like an ambassador to women.
Oh,
she's like a women.
Yeah, at the UN or something. I know who you're talking about.
She's a propagandist for the UN, right? So whatever her title is, that's just another form of propaganda.
Yeah, but let's get back into what you were saying right now. So let's not follow like train tracks. Let's do this organically. You were just saying that these people, like these activists who were self-describing themselves, were deploying propaganda by doing so?
Yeah, so I think this is a topic that I wanted to cover. It's kind of a big topic. I don't know if we'll get through it all today, but left-wing propaganda is excellent. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's very much seated in the thought that it isn't propaganda, that it's anti-propaganda, that you're being deprogrammed, that you're fighting against the man, that you're not taking what they're shoving down your throats. Like, it's really genius stroke, top level stuff that Bernays would be in awe of, Yeah. And I kind of wanted to, like, we've talked about the book, The Rebel Cell before. And I think, especially when looking at like left wing propaganda, I think anyone who's listening to this should read The Rebel Cell. I
haven't read that since university, but I remember really liking it.
Yeah, I've read it. I read it in university. I read it again probably about 8 years ago, and I think I'm going to read it again this year, because every time we get into a discussion, it almost always seems to come up. It's it's always there. So activism is kind of this thing where they're like, how do we spread our message? Well, we spread our message by educating people, by showing them the truth, by teaching them to deprogram, by teaching them to decolonize. Don't trust the media. The media's lying to you. Big government's lying to you. Our history books are whitewashed. Our history books are just propaganda. It's just lies that's been told to you so that we can run the country a certain way. And really, we have the truth. We are the truth seekers, and we are the people that look for the real truth that will bring meaning to your life, and we can fight the power. But, like activism, it's never ending, right? There's a popular book out right now by Douglas Murray called The Menace of Crowds. And he talks about things like the LGBT movement, where, like for a long time, the LGBT movement had kind of a concrete set of ideas of equality, things that they wanted to achieve. And they basically achieved them all in the last 20 years. But the LGBT movement is bigger than it's ever been now. There's more money being poured into it than ever. There's more people who sympathize it. There's more activists than ever. There's more people publishing books. There's more people talking on the radio, on television, getting into the government, more than ever, right? But like, why would you need more LGBT activists if you've accomplished all of the goals you set out to achieve? And the answer is it's a big propaganda machine. Like, it's a giant propaganda machine that has to keep feeding itself. Do you know what I mean?
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm not entirely. So I was bringing up like what I think might be a difference in how you and I understand what propaganda is. So you had said that these activists describing themselves was a form of propaganda. How do you see it that way?
Well, they market themselves as having real knowledge.
Would you say that marketing and propaganda are always one and the same?
I would say they go hand in hand. They're maybe not always the same, but the difference is subtle and overlapping. Like,
I would say, and I think that Edward Bernays would agree, is that like, there's marketing where it's like, you know, they use this example in the book. It's like, buy my pianos. My pianos are great. They work well and they're cheap. Buy my pianos. And then you could also lie about that. Like, you could have shitty pianos and say, my pianos are great. My pianos are awesome. Yeah. I wouldn't call either of those propaganda, and I don't think that he would either. I think what propaganda is controlling how the other person sees your pianos. So, I mean, in the book, there's the example with this, to take this piano thing a step further, is that to increase the sale of pianos, they got, you know, the celebrities of the age, the aristocracy, to all start having music rooms. I don't remember exactly how they did that, but they got, you know, people that people looked up to have music rooms. And then, so like the middle classes, they all wanted to have their own music rooms. And then once you have a music room, what are you going to fill it with? Well, it's like a natural thing at that time would be a piano. And then piano sales thusly went up, and it was a you know, successful marketing campaign, yes, but the propaganda element of it was that they were changing the way, they were creating a need in the person's mind, so that the person thought that they were engineering consent, as he calls it. The person thought they were making their own decision to buy a piano when that kind of need was put into their head by the propagandists.
Yeah, totally. Well,
So,
I mean,
okay,
just,
but
like,
so how is that example that you used propaganda?
well, I mean, like, just the feminist activism. He got women to smoke cigarettes by appealing to popular feminists, by appealing to people who were chic and trendy and getting them to smoke and changing public opinion. And so, like, LGBTQ is an industry now. It's a huge commercial industry. It's not just a political movement or a philosophy. It's like, look at Toronto or Ottawa, say. These are two cities that we know pretty well. Do you remember 20 years ago when LGBT Pride was for 1 month? It's endless now. It never stops. Like, you go around the streets and it's just the gyms LGBT week and the bakery stores LGBT cake day, and like, it's just never ending capitalism.
I was downtown Ottawa one day, and I showed Mike. Like just within a 10-minute walk, I took pictures of all the rainbow flags I saw. We're talking like stickers on businesses' windows, actual flags coming out of, you know, the flagpoles of businesses, rainbow sidewalks painted along, and it's all year round. It's all year round everywhere.
There was I don't remember where it was, but there was, like, I guess every year there's a world pride as well as like a gay pride. There's one that the world focuses on. I think the one was in Toronto 5-6 years ago. I think they had something like 10 million visitors come through the city over the month. That's a third of the population of Canada at the time, right? Like, this is a non-insignificant capitalistic venture that they're taking on here, right? And if you think that it's just it's just capitalism is just kind of taking advantage of our cool social movement that we push forward, you're wrong. Like, they go together. It's not like the relationship between the propagandists and the consumer isn't like one pushes the other 100%. It's a dance, right? Like, they move together with each other, right? The propagandist will change his tactics depending on public opinion, right? So yeah, I mean, activism right now is the idea du jour. To be an activist now is to have social status. If you are fighting for Black Lives Matter, if you are fighting for the people who have no voices, you are a good person, and you will do well in your social circles, and it's good business, and it's good economics, and it's good for people who want to have good social status to partake in these things, right? And the LGBT community has locked onto that and completely seeded that in people's mind. Oh, you want your business to do well? You should support gay people. You should support trans rights. That will be good for your business. And same with the consumer, right? Like, oh, you don't want to buy. Oh, there's a cake place that won't make a cake for a gay wedding. They're bad. Boycott them. Shut them down.
And I mean, Black Lives Matter explicitly, I mean, the official organization Black Lives Matter explicitly is practicing this sort of lobbying that you're talking about, where if a business does not support Black Lives Matter, they will institute official boycott campaigns against those businesses.
Yeah, and I also want to say, if you are listening to this podcast and you are angry with us for saying these things, just remember what Edward Bernays said. You know, propaganda is not good or bad. It's just it's just a method for you to sway the public to your opinion, basically, right?
Yeah, so the entire time that we're talking right now, we're going to be using Edward Bernays' definition of propaganda. And it's not, you know, I listed this top Google result where it's like propaganda is bad, public relations is good. It's like, it's like it's like there's black magic and good magic, but we're just talking about magic.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think please listen to that part. If you only get a clip, I hope this is the clip that you listen to. Yeah. So I mean, is there anything else you didn't understand about my activism?
Yeah, I don't want to hang on it too long. The reason I was hanging on to this right now is because I was going to bring up towards the end. So you had written the description of this episode, and you had written like the first sentences, like, do you ever wonder why Rage Against the Machine tickets cost $500? And I'd asked you last night, what does that have to do with propaganda? Rage Against the Machine tickets costing $500. And the way you explained it, it seemed to me to not jive with how I view propaganda. And in the same way that you saying, you know, these activists describing themselves is propaganda doesn't jive with my understanding of propaganda. They're not manipulating the receiver of the information. They're not manipulating the receiver of the information. They're just stating their case. They might be lying.
No, that's completely wrong. So, like activists, it's a completely it's in the culture. They start in the universities, and you've got activists that are professors teaching the people who are going to be the leaders of the future. So are going to be doctors, nurses, teachers, politicians, dentists, lawyers, right?
Sure.
Teaching them social justice. Everyone needs to learn about diversity. When you go to your student center, it's important that there's diversity. When you're hiring, there needs to be diversity.
Okay, Mike, to me, the propagandist is the one who is putting these teachers in the institutions to then create a population.
Exactly.
Okay, but
so there's an LGBT lobby that makes sure you have to have a certain percent of gay teachers. They make sure you have a certain percent of minority teachers, and they don't care about the color of their skin so much as they care about the ideas that they're going to propagate there, right?
Sure, like, but then those would be the propagandists. I think maybe we do agree, but I wouldn't say so. To use the two examples that we brought up, like Rage Against the Machine tickets, like if there's a Ticketmaster is charging $500, or like the record company or whoever, like the production manager, whoever is involved in making the $500 ticket, they're not propagandists, I wouldn't say. And the person who is an activist and saying like activists are awesome or whatever the long definition you had earlier, I wouldn't call that person a propagandist either, not necessarily, at least not based on what you had just said.
Yeah, so I do see what you're saying. I'm kind of jumping ahead here. So there's something that I wanted to get into later, and I'd like to wait till later, I guess.
Okay.
But to focus on like personal propaganda, like how you present yourself to everybody and how you use propaganda on a personal level, as opposed to like being a puppeteer and a puppet master, or like a company owner or a charity runner or whatever it is, right? Like how you use it in a position of a personal position as opposed to a position of power, right? But
I will just say, so me like brushing my teeth or not brushing my teeth to affect the way people see me is not propaganda at all. But like, let's say in your definition of personal propaganda, let's say I want to empty the room. Like I want to be alone in this room. Okay, I might not brush my teeth for weeks to then put in the people's minds that they want to leave the room, when in fact I was making them want to leave the room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that would be a type of personal propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just like the kind of people you want around you, right? So like if you want to push vegetarianism, right? And you want, like, let's say you're a father or a mother, like you have control over the kids that come into your house to play with your kids, your own kids, your family members. They come over for dinner and it's like, well, I'm only making vegan meals. Like I'm not going to allow meat in my house. I'm not going to allow this. And then it's like, if that ever comes up where someone's like, oh, can we get like a pepperoni pizza? You've got a chance to like launch into your soapbox and blah, 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 blah.
But that's not propaganda. Okay. If
It is
you,
propaganda because you're changing the outcome of what's going to happen in your house. So either they're A, going to be like,
I totally disagree.
all right, fine,
I totally
that's cool.
disagree.
Or B, they're going to stop coming over.
I totally disagree. So in that sense, the prison guard is a propagandist because they have control of the prisoner to move to the yard at a certain time. It's making the person think that they're doing it on their own volition.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. But like you all right, let's keep going because
Okay,
I do
cool.
want to flesh this
Yeah.
thought out,
Yeah,
but I
sure.
want to do it at the end of the
Yeah, I didn't mean.
at the
Like I
end.
said, I didn't mean to get too hung up on it. I just
That's okay,
like
that's okay.
moving forward. It's nice to have the same.
Yeah,
thing in our mind.
We're kind of
But,
apart. Let's
yeah,
go parallel and come back.
Let's get back to the book. So Bernays actually created the term public relations when, after employing the same tactics used during World War I and World War II, he decided, hey, these tactics are actually something that we could use during peacetime. So previously, these methods were kind of only employed during wartime, right? And, in the early 1900s, people like Bernays started applying wartime propaganda to convince people to go to war and everything into peacetime for various reasons. You could do that in business to promote products, and you could also do it, as Bernays did actually, with several government organizations to promote peace itself.
Yeah, I think one of the things he promoted was like vaccines and public health.
Yeah.
And Bernays also had this kind of idea that if you're a propagandist, you need to have ethics, like a good set of ethics, because if you don't believe in the thing you're promoting and it's not a good thing, then you shouldn't propagandize it, right? He famously went totally back on his cigarette promotion and apparently just felt terrible about it, and did everything he could to get everyone to quit smoking afterwards, but it was too late.
Well, I mean, you're touching on what I would say. I mean, he calls himself a propagandist for propaganda, and I can sense
So you think he did that for his own image?
Well, that he very well could have. He very well could have.
Yeah.
I do get that impression throughout the book. Like you said, like, oh, if you're a propagandist, you shouldn't do things that you don't stand. You shouldn't propagandize for things that you don't yourself stand for. But he also says that, you know what, like the propagandists who are doing things that they stand for will ultimately succeed over the propagandists who aren't, and therefore propaganda is good.
It's kind of like if someone's a clown and then you can't tell if they're joking. They're like, no, but now I'm being serious, and you're like, but you're always joking, like.
Yeah.
You know?
And to me, it seems obvious. Like to bring back the black magic and white magic stuff. To me, it seems obvious that there's going to be at the very best, there's going to be very negative repercussions for practicing propaganda in any society.
Yeah. There. I mean, it just seems so impossible to be like a benevolent propagandist. You know, it just seems entirely.
Well, I mean, you could be, but
undoable.
if you're in a society and culture that accepts propaganda and says like, okay, that's cool that you can do that, do this type of stuff, that inevitably there will be very negative things happening, and the positives might be like it might counterbalance the negatives, but it was just, it's so odd for me to read like Edward Bernays saying these types of things out loud. We should actually get more into the book, because I feel like we haven't really communicated too much of like what's in the actual book, and we're just talking about our own opinions of what's in the book.
Yeah. Okay, go on then.
Well, the book itself, like one of the reasons, like you were saying that you really liked the book, and you thought it was a good book. I think it's a good book too. Like on balance, I would recommend it, but I did think it was a really boring book at times. The content of it, I would say, is very valuable and not often talked about. The content is not talked about often enough. So I would certainly recommend it just based on that. But the way it's written, it was actually directed towards his clientele, people that he wanted to work for. So there's a sense that, like, you know, someone's talking to me like they're in a business meeting or something, you know, like they're not appealing to anything that I normally like to read books for, you know?
Yeah, and it's very obvious that it was written 72 years ago.
That too, all the cultural references are very old, and like all the, you know, social movements that he talks about and everything. Like he talks about like the Aryan Singing Society, and I think he uses the word like Negro or something. Yeah.
I remember the Aryan Singing Society. Good bunch of chaps.
So just the book itself, not our opinions on it. Like, what would I can go off of some of mine first if I'm catching you off guard. But what would you say are the main lessons from the book?
Okay, so I would say kind of one of the main takes I already said is like propaganda is not good or evil. Like propaganda just kind of is this tool that you can use. I would say that it's really quite incredible that at the time he was merging kind of psychology with marketing and economics. Like this had never been done at the time right now. And so you can really see a lot of good examples from this right now, where you see big companies kind of playing off your feelings based on to try and market a product to you, right? To try and get you to do something. It's not just them saying, hey, like I'm Nike, we sell the best clothes. It's like, oh, are you in like you should be into sports. Like sports are good for you. Sports makes you happy. So therefore you should buy like Nike clothes, you know? It's stuff like that. And it might be kind of obvious in the society growing up. If you're under 60 or 70, you know, you might be just so bombarded with these kind of things every day. Those things might be obvious to you, but you have to understand when he wrote this, like this didn't happen. Like nobody talked about things like this. Nobody marketed things like this.
Well, I mean, they like these propagandists. I think Edward Bernays himself involved in, you know, they were trying to sell bacon. So they wouldn't just go to people and say like, hey, bacon is tasty. It's, you know, it's cheap. It's, you know, buy it. They would contact physicians and have physicians say to their patients, you know, you need like a really hearty breakfast. Maybe you should include these things. Therefore the person is then like, well, you know what? I want some bacon. Rather than you going to them and telling them, buy some bacon, you want them to come to you and ask for you to give them bacon.
Yeah, and so like the modern day equivalent I immediately thought of when I read that was like someone like Dr. Oz. So like you look at Dr. Oz and like literally he'll be pushing like, oh, like the research shows that this kind of ketogenic diet can actually influence you to lose weight. Like ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, vegan diet, paleo diet, raw food diet. Like you can find physicians that support all these different diets, and it is scientifically impossible that they're all correct. Like it is. So you can see in our everyday life very easily how it's still being done today, that doctors are being used or knowingly shilling things at you. The food pyramid is another really interesting one. So like in Canada, I don't know if the United States had this, but in Canada, we used to have a food pyramid that was like, eat lots of grains and then vegetables and fruits, and then like a little bit of meat, dairy, and eggs, and then like a little bit of sugar and like desserts, and it would be a pyramid, right? And it turns out that was written by farmers who have like a say in the grain industry, right? So they were just trying to sell bread, and then the milk farmers and the egg farmers got in last, and they were like, okay, well we'll carve out a piece for you and whatever. It was not written by doctors, and it was not written by nutritionists. So like you can still see this stuff around today.
Yeah. Do you have any other major takeaways from the book? Is like beyond our opinions on it?
Well, why don't you say something, then I'll see if anything comes to mind.
I mean, just to go back to the basics, like we can say for certain that humans, to one degree or another, are predictable, and therefore they are manipulable.
Yes.
So that's kind of the keystone of this whole thing. And then in the democratic society of peoples who are equal under the law, you often need the consent of other people around you to achieve your goals. So propaganda / public relations, it's about leading people to give you their consent without knowing that you've cultivated the ideas in their head.
Yeah. Is that a book? Is it Manufacturing Consent? Isn't that Noam Chomsky?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
All right, go on.
And to build off that, and Bernays says this is natural and necessary, but as it stands, we have a invisible government of people who exercise a degree of control over our thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. And
I'm not sure if we do need that, but he says that we do need that because we're basically too stupid and brutish to not have these elites controlling what we think.
Yeah, and it's an interesting question. Like, I don't totally disagree with them. I feel like you disagree more than I do. But it's not obvious to me, like, if we're going to live in a globalistic society where, you know, like, let's say the United States of America is kind of unified states that stand for something, protecting its people, let's say. If they kind of become this broken association of small cities that all kind of govern themselves and do whatever the fuck they want, they lose power. They won't be able to sufficiently protect the citizens. They won't be able to sufficiently stand up to a force that is unified. So if you've got like China, where everyone's, lockstep behind the government, do whatever they say, and then America turns into this kind of like hippie wishy-washy thing where everyone kind of does what they want and they're free and whatever. Like when they go to war, who do you think's going to win? It's going to be China.
Yeah,
100%.
sure. So
this is the mindset of Edward Bernays, because he's a war propagandist, right? Like he's completely understands the importance of war and what it does and why it matters.
The readings that I've done, it's not about like, oh, if we don't have powerful people controlling the masses, then we'll lose in global geopolitics and like we will be conquered by a foreign country. Like that's not the perception that I got.
It's the backdrop to how he came up with all these ideas. It's not like the central focus, but it's in the background at all times, I feel like.
Okay. Well, I didn't really get that sense so much, but yeah, I could see how that's a valid point.
Yeah. Right.
But just and so you would also say then, like, is you're saying that you kind of take his side on that, correct?
Well, yeah. I think that having studied psychology, I think there's a lot of decisions that we make that are from the hip. They're heuristics. They're quick.
Okay. Well, now you're making a different point. I was going to go off on the point you were making before.
Well, go on then.
Okay. So you would also say, like, let's say, the farming environment and the state of technology in a civilization was such that slavery was kind of beneficial and necessary to the point where that country or nation would maintain their power if they instituted slavery, but they would lose power if they abolished slavery. You would say, well, slavery is like kind of a necessary thing for us.
But potentially, yes.
Okay.
So, like it obviously depends on A, if you can keep slavery going, and B, if everyone else is doing it, right? So, if you've got...
Oh, no, it's just a simple, like you said, like, well, he says it's necessary because we would lose power if we were all hippy-dippy, or however you put it. So, like, let's take that to its extreme. Like, what if we're talking about, like, slavery, something that, we all kind of tend to consider as bad? Like, what about that? Like, would that be acceptable?
The only way China is a superpower right now is because they still have basically slavery, right? They treat their workers and they do things to workers that are unthinkable in the United States, right? Unless you're in like a prison situation or something, like United States prisons where they're making uniforms for McDonald's and Applebee's is another example of modern day slavery, right? And so like it's been moved to this. Popular opinion won't allow you to say take a bunch of black people and get them to work for free, but it will allow you to have a bunch of people in prison working for free, right?
Mm-hmm.
So slavery is something that is bad, that the propagandists keep going because it's beneficial to capitalism and to the society, and everyone kind of just goes along with it.
So I would say that propaganda is bad too. Like my immediate reaction to people like Bernays is like I hate people like Bernays. I want them exorcised from society. But his arguments that it's necessary. He wouldn't call it an evil, but his arguments that to my eye it's a necessary evil, and that saying that we brought up before, it's cliche. It's like democracy is the worst system except for all of the others. It's like, I could see how things maybe could be worse without this technocratic elite controlling people's ideas and hurting the masses. I could see how, maybe as much as I hate them and the things they're doing, the world would be worse without them. So it's possible. I'll grant you that. I still hate them.
Yeah, I think there's
these people see some people like us as grunts, pigs.
Yeah.
We're pigs.
Yes.
We're pigs, essentially.
We're peasants. Yeah, we're chattel. We're cogs in a machine. Yeah. No, and I get that, and I understand the contempt towards these people, but at the same time, you have to realize the world we live in, and your position in the world is only so malleable. You can only change it so far, right? So in order for you to say like start an uprising against these kind of people, what do you need to do? Well, you would need to become a great propagandist. You would
Yeah.
need to get a whole bunch of people on your side and rally them up and rise against and then squash your enemies, destroy them and crush them. And then how are you going to maintain that power? Well, you're going to need to be a good propagandist. You know, like it is a necessary fact of power that propaganda is just a tool.
I mean,
right?
It's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. Like, you could have a movement that's like, we're gonna stomp this propaganda shit out. We're going to get all these people that are like practicing this. You will not be able to make statements like Bernays says in that book. You'll get kicked out of the society. Blah 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 blah.
How do you spread the message? How do you get people on your side? How do you encourage them to join your movement without propaganda?
Yeah, but I mean, like, okay, yeah, to a certain extent, you're right. To a certain extent, you're right. But it's a similar thing as like, you know, wielding atomic bombs for those in the name of peace. You know.
Yes. Yeah. No, I definitely understand. It's very uncomfortable to think about, and it's off-putting, and it's upsetting. And I agree with you. I don't really like this kind of idea where Edward Bernays is like, haha, I'm a puppet master controlling all of these simpletons. You know, I don't want to be friends with someone like that. But is he wrong? Like, is he actually wrong?
That's a serious question, and that's why I don't come into this episode all fiery saying like fuck this guy, like I did more so on our tech censorship episode. But I am very, very skeptical, to say the least, of that claim that it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it very much ties into our tech censorship.
First of all, it was propaganda. Like, so the main argument for propaganda, it's like, you know, peace, to keep like order from chaos is like how he ends the book. Is propaganda is the method of which you create order out of chaos. Like, the chaos of the world wars was largely created from propaganda. Edward Bernays was working towards making the wars with his propaganda.
Yeah, totally. It's
like the cause of and solution to all of the world's problems.
Alcohol. Yeah. It's it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. If you haven't read this book, I would definitely recommend it. So I kind of wanted to talk about, like, once you kind of accept his life view, things do become easier when you want to start making choices, right? So, like, you know that the news you consume is going to have propaganda. You know that the products that are marketed towards you is going to have propaganda. You know that, like, the kind of clubs you're asked to join, the religion, the lack of religion, the education you get is going to be propaganda.
Honestly, within a capitalist society, absolutely everything. From the T-shirts you see people walking down, from the fact that they're wearing T-shirts, everything.
Yes. Yeah, and it's kind of comforting in a way, because once you realize this, you don't have to be angry at it. If you live in a capitalist society that's pluralistic enough, where there's enough different people trying to get your attention and trying to manipulate you, it actually, I think it puts you in a position of power, because then you get to just, if you kind of put your ego aside, your id ego, and really focus and think about the kind of lifestyle that you want to live, the things that you want, that you really want, not the things that, like, you're like, oh, I'm hungry, I want to eat. It's like, no, I want to have a life that looks like this. And then how do I get it? Like, how do I surround myself with people that I want to be around? How do I get the education that I want to get? How do I have the wife that I want? How do I have the family that I want? Whatever your goals are, whatever they are. Once you've kind of sat and thought about it, you can then focus, and it's very easy to see, okay, this is a distraction, that's a distraction, that's a distraction. I want to align myself with these sets of propaganda and become that kind of person that this propaganda is focused towards. And that's the niche, that's the part in society I want to fit in. So I will focus.
What do you mean by that, aligning yourself with these types of propaganda?
Well, I mean, like, let's say you're like, well, I want to have a wife and 2 kids and a house, and I want to be like an important member of my community, and I want to be looked up to and respected. Well, maybe you should join a church. Like a church is propaganda. That might be a good fit for you. Like you join the church, you can sing in the choir.
Wait, so now we're going back to the same disagreement that we had before. I wouldn't say the church is propaganda.
You don't think the church is propaganda?
No.
Okay. I find that very strange because like Edward Bernays, one of the things he talks about was like how wasn't it like the Vatican was like one of the first propagators of propaganda?
Yeah.
The propagandi, the Italians.
He does mention stuff like that, but the church isn't like, so you could say that the Vatican employed propaganda, and a church could employ propaganda, but I wouldn't call the church propaganda.
Well, I mean, I think religion does employ propaganda. Like it's saying you should live this, you should want to do these things, you should want to act this way.
But that's exactly that. So that's the distinction that we made before. It's like, you should buy my piano because it's good. It's great.
Exactly. But so like as an individual, you can pick which propaganda you prefer.
But I'm saying that's not propaganda.
But it's all propaganda, right? They're putting their propaganda on you. So if you could just step outside of it and then take your pick of different propaganda, like maybe there's a disconnect here. Do you think like propaganda is this like overarching one force moving on you, or do you think it's multiple things like pushing at you from different directions, grabbing for your attention?
There's multiple people and organizations and entities and employing propaganda.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you know what you want in life, then you can use it to your advantage and align yourself with the propagandists that best suit your worldview.
Okay, but once you realize it is propaganda, it no longer has an impact on you. Like if women knew that they were being manipulated into smoking cigarettes in the 1920s, they wouldn't have started smoking cigarettes. They thought it was their own decision.
Well, yeah, but there would be a counter propaganda of a group of people who would be feminists still saying, "Oh, don't smoke. Think for yourself. Like, be an educated woman."
But that's not propaganda. That's not propaganda. Like if I tell you, Mike, Mike, your headphones are shit. You need to buy some headphones like these. These are great headphones. That's not propaganda. And then if somebody else came up and they said, "No, Mike, your headphones are awesome. Believe in yourself."
I understand. Like if you were running the podcast and like secretly fucking up my audio all the time and being like, "Man, I don't know. It must be your headphones." Like,
exactly.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But then if I was like, okay, I can see that Jason is doing this, but like, what kind of podcast? Do I want to have a podcast where I have good headphones? Do I want that or not? And if I do, then I can join sides with you, right? Like I can join your propaganda, or I could leave and I could find someone else who's like, "No, man, like we're the low key podcast. We have like shitty tech and like we're hardcore and blah 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 blah." Right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. It's kind of funny to me though. Like it's like you see me like secretly trying to like manipulate you behind the scenes, and you're like, you know what? I like what he's doing. I like his intention. I like his intention.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like I like the way this guy's trying to manipulate me. I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna go hang out with this guy. But I mean, what choice do you have? Once you realize everyone that you come into contact is basically trying to manipulate you to some extent or another. And again, I'm not talking about like your personal friends and whatever, but like, you know, let's say
well, I disagree. I think actually like so the personal like people manipulating other people is as old as like humanity. That's always been happening. It's the masses, which is the very recent thing that like Bernays was kind of a pioneer of.
Yeah. Well, yeah. All right. I think I pretty much agree with that statement. So that's fine.
I just wanted to like, I don't know how I'm going to wedge this in, so I'm just going to bring it up now that we had a second of dead air. This is an interesting fact about Bernays. So he was also a pioneer in changing women's roles in society, as we said, with the cigarettes and a bunch of other things, and removing distinctions between women and men in society. His wife kept her maiden name when they got married, which was very rare at the time. His wife was the first woman to be issued a passport without her husband's last name on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In the United States, I'm assuming. Not ever.
Well, I would assume ever if it happened in the United States, but yeah, it is the United States, yeah.
Yeah, all right. I mean, I guess that's good. Women's rights is an interesting propaganda one, I think. Like the move to have women vote was a propaganda move.
Oh yeah, and women enter the workforce.
women in the workforce was women in the workforce
Dude.
was not pushed by women who wanted more rights. It was pushed by capitalists who wanted lower wages for workers.
Yeah, I want to start propagandizing men to leave the workforce. No more men in the workforce. I've said this before.
It's not a bad idea.
Well, it's going to be so much harder to convince women to leave the workforce. Like, men need to just buck up. It's going to be so much better if one of the sexes just removes themselves and that we maintain some separation of roles. The wages go way up. The household is going to be making as much money. There's just going to be one person at home. Women can't handle it. So men, buck up, put the world on your shoulders. Just do it. Like,
it's
stay
not
at
a
home.
bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
It might be better for women to stay home, but that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So just have the men stay home.
Yeah, and then you could have your kids raised by one person who's in the house all the time, looking out for them, making sure they don't get into trouble. You lower the amount of people in the workforce, so you lower the supply of labor, which raises wages, which makes people, the one person coming will have better wages. And then, like, there are going to be problems, there's going to be stuff we're going to have to work out, like, oh, what about the women that leave men? Like, how are they going to be able to take care of themselves? So, we could have some sort of like payment system where, like, if you're married for so long, you have to kind of like maintain that man in the lifestyle that he had when you were married for a certain amount of years, maybe until he could, like, like, obviously society doesn't want him to get a job, but like, if he has to get a job to support himself, then like, he's going to need some time to like enter in the workforce and retrain and stuff. So like, his ex-wife should support him in that.
I just want to buck in right now. I just realized I've got multiple windows open, and I can see like the bottom of the graph on our concurrent viewers, and I just saw it drop like 2 or 3 as I started making that last statement.
Fuck!
I'm not a successful propagandist.
No, well, we definitely realize that our audience is men. I think. Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst idea. If you wanted to have like gender roles back, just put the men in the gender roles that were typically for women. It's not a bad idea.
And you can appeal to men's sense of like, like I said, like putting the world on your shoulders, just like muscling through, and it's like, I don't want to do this, but this is for the better of everyone.
What's best for your family?
Yeah,
it's what's best for your kids. It's what's best. You want to be a supportive husband.
Yeah. I just think it's totally funny to flip that script and be like, okay, well, women can't handle staying at home, so we're gonna do it. Like,
yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. The economy's good. We don't need to be out there.
Yeah,
we've built a beautiful economy for you, so just go nuts.
Men exit, Megxit. We'll call it Megxit.
Exit. Yeah,
Hashtag Megxit. I'm quitting my job. Hashtag Megxit.
I honestly, though, like, I don't think it's the worst propaganda campaign. It's not a terrible idea.
It would be so hard to enact. It would be so hard to enact.
Okay, I would love to stay at home all day and, like, what do I got to do? Clean the house, fucking do the dishes, cook, and then I get to play games with my kids all day, read books. Oh my God, we can play. I have so many fun ideas.
And this is the problem, because like in a capitalist society, in a capitalist democratic society, like, that propaganda campaign will never succeed, no matter how good it is. And I'm somewhat tongue in cheek about it. It's not something I've thought about a lot. It's probably I don't know. Just because on the face it's so ridiculous, I assume it's probably a bad idea, but maybe it isn't. In any case, whether it's good or bad, it would never succeed because the moneyed interests they want cheap labor.
No. They don't want you to fucking lower the work supply.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No way. No fucking way. There'd be like people like right-wing people would be coming in and say, no, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like the different men are much better built to do these kind of jobs. Oh, what? You're going to have women lay all the bricks? Like women are just going to work on all the oil rigs and stuff? This is ridiculous.
And this is one of the reasons why I think propaganda is almost certainly more of a bad thing than a good thing, because here in this specific example, if we just grant that, that the ridiculous idea that we came up with would be good, it would never happen because there isn't the money behind it. It doesn't make dollars and cents.
Yeah, it doesn't make dollars and cents to push. Like you're selling propaganda as like a product, right? So your propaganda idea is a product to companies to buy and invest in and push. and they're not going to buy that one. That one doesn't help them. So why would they buy it?
Yeah.
Right?
Like Hollywood is not going to make movies and like have Brad Pitt play a role where he leaves the workforce. Like it's not going to happen, you know? Like
we're so old that Brad Pitt is like the coolest guy we can come up with.
Okay, it was Zac Efron, probably not even
yeah,
that.
Probably the Efron.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. Yeah. Women's rights is kind of like one of those things where I think most people would say it's a good thing, but they don't feel comfortable admitting that propaganda had a huge part to play in pushing women's rights.
Yeah.
And I think most, like I know my mom and my sisters, I don't even think they would consider that propaganda, you know? Even though Edward Bernays...
That is what propaganda is, though. It makes you think that you are coming up with the ideas yourself, organically.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're smart people. Like, maybe they would excuse it or something and say, well, the ends justify the means.
Yeah.
You know, it got me something I liked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, you're kind of dancing with the devil, right? Like, you're kind of like opening... Like by allowing one kind of propaganda, you kind of have to allow all of them.
That's why I say I want to like. I'm you know, couching it with saying maybe it's a necessary evil, maybe it sucks, but it's the best we could hope for. But my immediate reaction is I want this shit exorcised. I want these propagandists exiled.
Yeah, I mean, like, just to flesh this out. So, like, if you don't understand how women's rights benefits capitalism, like, just look at, like, putting off having children, controlling your birth rate. Like, putting off having children means that you work, you enter the workforce, you make money, you spend more money on things. It's more expensive to keep an adult happy than it is to keep a child happy. It's much more expensive. Like, you're spending way more money. People are going out to bars, buying clothes, food, music. Like, just think about going to a nice restaurant, you and just your husband, like how expensive it is compared to, like, oh, I'm just gonna, like, take my family out once a month to McDonald's or something, just something nice, whatever. Like, you're not taking your family out for a nice $400, $500 a plate dinner ever, like, never. Whereas if you're single, you're like, oh, you know, honey, like, today is a special occasion. Let's go do that kind of thing, you know? So it's just kind of obvious to me, if you think about it for 10 seconds, like, how capitalism really has an invested interest in feminism, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to jump into right now, or should I just bring up something random?
Bring up something random.
So, like, this is one of the, like, I really don't like this guy, obviously. One of the things that kind of jumps out to me is why I see him as duplicitous and not, you know, kind of keeping a curtain in front of us is, so he wants to end all wars. Like, that's what he's saying. He's like, propaganda is a great peacetime tool to keep us from going to war. Yet he says ideas are weapons which are more effective than bullets. There are, and I would say there are nuclear holocausts happening right now if you have that dimension of thinking.
Okay, go on. What's the nuclear holocaust?
He's called the methods of propaganda psychological warfare, right? So this is just warfare in a different dimension, right? Like, you are winning and losing battles with people's minds and information.
I mean, I'm not so sure it's worse. Like, if you look at the kind of things that the Soviet Union did to its own citizens, like during the Cold War, I mean, I guess that's propaganda. Would you say that? Would you say that's, like, more The thing is, like, propaganda isn't. Do you think violence can be used as a source of propaganda? Like, do you think, like, a gulag?
Violence could be a tool of propaganda. So, like, you could pay, like. And man, George Soros is doing some crazy things. Not to get too conspiratorial on this, but like, just to bring it outside of the realm of contentious issues, like, you could pay a street gang to, you know, shoot up a neighborhood, which would then cause the neighborhood to buy your alarm systems and your private security forces, and that would be a form of propaganda.
Yeah. There's very interesting stuff like that. So apparently, like, liberals, since all these riots have been going on, there's, like, an uptick in liberal gun ownership.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, there's conspiracies on the left wing that right wing people are sending in people to, like, stoke the fires of the riots, to like break windows and like get shit started, leaving piles of bricks everywhere, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is kind of cool that the public is aware of propaganda, if not like it's more intuitive than explicit. Like this is, quote unquote propaganda with this definition. There's even talk about Donald Trump faking his COVID-19 positive test.
Friends of mine had told me, like, I want to see third-party doctors review that he's got. I want to see an independent doctor say that his coronavirus.
Which is very strange to me because it seems like there's been more negative press about Trump and more pro about Biden due to Trump contracting coronavirus than there was before. Like, it doesn't seem to be having the effect that they think it should have if he was doing this, like, as fake propaganda.
Yeah, well, I think it's very difficult in this day and age to catch a propagandist in the act unless they really slip up. And so, like something will happen. We were talking about Donald Trump giving $500 billion to black people. And it's like,
his proposal to do so, yeah.
What is going on here? Like, what Trump and the Republicans must know that black people are not going to vote for him. They must know this. They must know this. I'm not sure if the politicians are necessarily that smart, and that's what Edward Bernays is saying, is that there is an invisible government. It's not like Lindsey Graham in the Senate who is, guiding society. Yeah, it's 12 guys in the back room who have a conversation while they're playing poker, and they decide who the next president's going to be.
I wouldn't.
He said that in his book. He said it was
actually,
like.
Yeah, he did. He
did
say that. I do remember.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I would go that far, but he did say that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally true. I think that's totally true that people get together and say like, hey, like, who do you think we'd like to push for the next president of the United States?
Yeah, but so
or at least for like mayors of cities and stuff. I
cut you off. Where were you going with that? Like, they must know that this like $500 billion.
Well, okay, so like, I mean, it does not.
I have my own answer.
It does not take a genius to figure this out. Like, black people historically vote Democrat, and that's not going to change. You cannot sway public opinion in a matter of months. If you wanted to sway, you would need a propaganda campaign over decades, if not years. And
it has been going on for decades, by the way.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's just like another piece in the puzzle for Republicans. Maybe it's just another step in that direction.
Okay, so my theory is that it makes it okay for white people to vote for Republicans because they say they can't be racist. Look, they're giving the most money to black people than any president ever.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would think that. I would totally think that. I actually do bring that up all the time. I'm like, how can you say Donald Trump is racist? He's trying to give $500 billion to black people.
There you go.
That's more than reparations money that fucking Bernie Sanders is talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great response to that. So, yeah, maybe he's low key trying to get the white vote. By promising.
Well, suburban moms are like where he's struggling. Suburban white mothers, right, is where he's struggling. Suburban women in general. And one of the reasons that he's struggling there is because he's perceived as racist.
Yeah. So I mean, you don't have to convince the black people that they're going to get the money. You could just have to convince the white people that he's going to give the black people the money.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent move. Masterstroke by Donald. The
4D underwater chess, right?
No, it's definitely interesting to think. And it's so like, it's kind of like you said, like, I fucking hate these people. Like, every time I analyze politics, every time I look at like who do I want to vote for? It's like, I have to say, like, I have to look at like, what are they saying? And then it's like, what are they really saying? Like, what do they want? What are their motives? And I wish I could just like pull them aside and be like, okay, man, like what are you really going to do? Like, what do you actually want to do? And you just can't, right? Like, unless you're the Koch brothers or somebody like that, like you can't just get access to these people.
Yeah, on that, I think there was a pretty fantastic tweet because the debates, we had the first presidential debate, which happened, was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, it was pretty much in the media, and everybody that I've talked to, most people that I've talked to, is kind of universally said is like to be a train wreck. Right? It was a disaster. Some people were saying it was the worst debate they've ever seen. But there was this tweet. This is by Dave Smith. You know who that is, right? He's like this comic.
Yeah, he does
like libertarian podcast
with Michael Malice. He does shows all the time.
He does a lot of times with Michael Malice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last night's debate was fantastic. All these people saying, quote unquote, the country lost have no perspective. We always lose. Presidential debates have never been about a serious battle of ideas. It's two propagandists competing for power. Entertainment is all you can hope for. So I kind of like that, and I kind of think it's kind of fitting with the episode that we're doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, do you agree with that statement?
Largely, yes. I mean, I don't know. Like you were saying that, like, we tend to think, oh, you know, these ideas, like discovering like propaganda and how people are propagandized is awesome. And like, I can't believe that all of those people are being propagandized. Meanwhile, I'm not. So maybe I'm falling into that trap, but I do tend to think that I do like having some ideas sparred with on a debate stage. Maybe I'm just deluding myself, though.
I feel like you and me are both kind of contrarians to a lot of ideas, you know?
Definitely.
In general.
100. Yeah, I don't think you need to feel that way. I think you need to know that way.
Okay, so I'm sympathetic towards people who are like in counterculture movements, but it is a mistake to think that you are beyond propaganda, that it's just like, oh, I see that what's really going on here. I make decisions for myself. I'm able to think for myself. I'm a smart guy. It's totally untrue. Like, it's completely untrue.
Honestly, like, if you want people to like feel like it's hopeless and like just tune out of debates, putting like a senile old man and like a blowhard
billionaire.
Yeah, it's kind of a masterstroke right there.
Yeah, well, I feel like Trump came out of nowhere, and the Republican Party wasn't kind of ready for him first round of debates. But he's kind of set in now, and the Republican Party's figured out like what they want to do with him and how to get things done with him. And now he doesn't seem to be the same kind of candidate he was in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, before he seemed counterculture, and honestly, I still find myself being like very into his side of things, just because with how things have swung and how like kind of, especially the mainstream media, like I like watching them explode and like, you know, own the libs. Like I do get a kick out of that stuff. So in that sense, like I still kind of, you know, am a bit of a fan of him in that sense, but he definitely doesn't. When I look at like the things that he has done policy-wise, the things that he has instituted, what he has accomplished throughout his time in 3 or 4 years, he doesn't seem like much of a contrarian anymore.
No, I mean, it's very clear that he's towing the Republican Party line. And I mean, there's another book that I've recommended before. It's called The Dictator's Handbook.
Yeah.
It's just impossible for somebody in the position of the president to really make that much change if they don't, A, have public opinion on their side, and B, have the powers that be turning keys to open doors for them, right? And so he's kind of had to play ball with the Republican Party to get anything done at all. And I have a feeling like a lot of his motives are kind of personal finance, personal legacy that he wants to leave behind. I'm sure his kids will be set for life if they weren't already. Yeah. They'll, you know, but like the Trump family, the children have really been bumped into this like upper echelon now of American royalty, which they didn't have access to before, you know. Ivanka Trump is now friends with all the politicians, and same with Eric and Don Jr. You know, Don Jr. is doing his book tour. Nobody seems to care. The conservatives don't seem to care that Don Jr. basically left his wife and kids and is dating some fucking whore and going around pumping a book out, you know, like they're all lockstep behind him now. How is that conservatism? The guy who walks out on his fucking family and goes to shill a fucking book, like, get the fuck out of here. I don't know. It's just, Donald Trump seems to be a lot more like invisible hand up his ass than he was 4 years ago. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I mean, we definitely agree on that. So what I was gonna say about us, like we're kind of contrarians, and I have this kind of the Rebel Cell I talk about a lot. I think everyone should go read the Rebel Cell. There's this kind of idea that if you're left wing, propaganda doesn't affect you. And I would say, like, really look at it carefully.
Yeah,
Like, really look at it.
Yes.
Really
Because
take it, like,
maybe,
Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
We could start with Black Lives Matter, right? So, like, Black Lives Matter is a hugely popular movement right now. Billions and billions and billions of dollars, multiple billions of dollars have been thrown towards Black Lives Matter. My question to you would be, what are they spending the money on? What does Black Lives Matter spend its money on, and how does it help Black people stop being shot by police officers? What is it doing to lower the number of police officers being shooting Black people? And then the other question is, Black Lives Matter is an easy thing to say, a master stroke of propaganda. Who would argue with the fact that Black Lives Matter? But the real question is, well, which Black Lives matter? Which are the Black lives that we're focused on right now? Because if you want to talk about, say, Black people dying from malaria, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people dying. They say, whoa, we're not focused on that. That's like saying we're at a march for breast cancer and you want to talk about rectal cancer, bud. We're not. Oh, okay, fine. I get that. We're talking about breast cancer. Okay. So what's the breast cancer issue? Is it the thousands of people that are dying from black on black crime? No. It's not that. We're talking about police brutality against Black people. It's widespread. It's terrible. It's an awful thing that propagates our society. The whole machine is working against Black people and is killing so many Black people. They're dying in the streets. They're being hunted down. And you say, okay, how many of them are there? The answer to that question is 200 Black people get shot every year by the police. 200.
And there are global riots and protests.
Yeah, and I mean, like, again, I'm not saying this is a bad cause. I'm not even saying that here. I'm just saying, like, do you think that you are not being manipulated into supporting a cause that has billions and billions of dollars to save the lives of 200 people, some of whom there's no way to save? There's no way to stop some of these people from getting shot. Like, some of these people are making choices that put themselves in a position where it is impossible that they do not get shot by police. Some of them, right? So we're talking, let's be very charitable right now and say half of these people are completely innocent, half of these 200. Let's say even 75%. So now we're talking about 100 to 150 people that need multiple billions of dollars spent on them to stop them from dying. This seems to me like a problem you could solve with less money and less attention. And it seems to me like a bigger problem that you would probably care about more if you really cared about Black lives, like, say, how many Black children die from malaria every year. It seems like the money would be better spent there if you really thought about it. And I really think that any person who is on the left would agree with me that there needs to be more money spent on malaria and stopping malaria than there needs to be spent on Black Lives Matter. Like, that is just kind of like, if you don't understand that, you don't understand what triage is. You don't understand how to deal with bigger emergencies before you deal with smaller problems, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I can see some counter arguments. I mean, I don't share the perspective of the person that would be arguing against you, but yeah. I could see, like, well, I mean, what's the point in saving lives if they're going to be oppressed and, like, live a life of shit? Like, we need to deal with the system.
Sure, but Black Lives Matter isn't about dealing with that system, and the money is not being...
I mean, they're always talking about systemic racism and...
But the focus is those 200 people that are being unjustly shot by the police.
But they don't think it's 200 people. Like, I mean, they would think that number is a lie, and it's like the system is racist. So the numbers you're getting are a lie, and then it's more than just the numbers of people who are getting shot. So people getting falsely arrested, who are getting harsher punishments, who are living unfairly in poverty, and all these things.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Again, that's fine, but, like, Black Lives Matter doesn't really kick up its heels and get upset every time some Black guy gets arrested for smoking weed. They only kind of rally together when it's a killing by a police officer.
I mean, those are the flashpoints, but they bitch a lot. If you listen to like Black Lives Matter proponents, like, talk at length, they bring up the incarceration rates for things like marijuana all the time.
Yes, Yes, they do. But the money that's going there is over these shootings. The money that's going there is over these
I mean,
killings.
that's the emotional draw for sure. Yeah.
The riots that are happening, the media attention, the
Yeah.
riots, the money, the big companies that support them are over these 200 shootings.
Yeah.
Right. And if again, like I think there's a lot of common ground with some of these Black Lives Matter activists that I actually would have, and I would share some sympathies towards them if the focus was on things like, well, why are there so many black people in jail for low-level drug crimes? I think I would be like, yeah, that's fucking ridiculous. But why are there so many? But the focus isn't there, right? And they're like, I don't even want to talk to you about that. We need to talk about Eric Gardner. We need to talk about Michael Brown. Remember their name. Remember their name. Remember their name. Say their name. And it's like, there's a lot of posturing, and there's a lot of like, I can see that you are trying to manipulate me into feeling a certain way, so I support your cause. This is propaganda. This is obviously propaganda. And I feel like I have a lot of friends, and I feel like there's a lot of people in the world who are sympathetic towards this kind of general feeling we have that black people have got the short end of the stick in the United States of America. I need to do something to help. And you're being taken advantage of, and your money is being funneled to a cause that isn't necessarily helping them. It's making a lot of people rich right now. Did you see in the news there was that black guy who got charged for taking like $400,000 from a GoFundMe page?
Yeah, I didn't look into it too much, but I mean, the GoFundMe gave the money back though, didn't they?
They did. But these are the you got him, you got Sean King, just the founders of Black Lives Matter. I bet most people who support Black Lives Matter cannot name the 3 lesbian founders that started the movement. I bet they don't even know that 3 women started the movement.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know I've seen them, but I don't think I can name them either. I know Jonetta Elzy or someone like that was one of the inceptional members, but I don't know if she was actually one of the 3 founders.
Yeah, so I mean, it just seems so obvious to me that these women are propagandists. These women are Marxists. These women are far left socialists, and they think, how can we make the world more socialist? Let's focus on the issue of race. Let's focus on this one issue. Let's push this button that everyone seems to care about, get a huge reaction. And then what can we get from it? We can get kind of the politics that we want to push everything more left. Like,
I've watched these people in debates. They're not compelling. They don't even seem to really have, like, as you said, most of these like leftists don't even know their names. They don't seem to be too compelling to anyone, let alone me. I would say, yes. I mean, you can have propagandists who are using other propagandists. I would say that the propagandists that we should concern ourselves with are the people who are like Kellogg's giving money to Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. Yes, why is that happening?
Totally. No, yeah, I totally agree. So like, this is another thing that I found interesting about Bernays. So he talks about these kind of like invisible people who make these decisions. And I think a lot of them almost fall into it by accident. And then somebody comes along and is like, here's something I can profit from. Here's an opportunity for me. And then takes advantage of a movement and just pushes it as far as they can go and gets as much out of it as possible. Yeah. And I think that's what's happening with Black Lives Matter. I think it was a sincere movement to begin with. I think this is what's happened with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Mothers Against Drunk Driving was originally a movement set up by women who were concerned about their sons going out and getting drunk and killing people or being killed by people, right? And, if you look at Canada, the United States, England, the English-speaking world, the Western world, drunk driving is pretty much condemned everywhere. Like, nobody likes it. Nobody wants it. Nobody supports it. Everyone's against it. But Mothers Against Drunk Driving brings in more money than ever. It's just this huge fucking concern. What do they spend all their money on? They spend it all on advertising. What is advertising? It's propaganda. They're manipulating the public to keep themselves in power,
Yeah. I'm not sure if they're. I mean, I would need to look at the rates of drunk driving and everything to see if they're propagandizing well, because I mean, traditional advertising methods are not often the best types of propaganda. Yeah.
Well, it's not just traditional. I mean, like it's everywhere. Like, do you remember at university the kind of attitudes people had? You're going to drive home drunk? Like, you're a terrible person. That's awful. That, like, how could you even think about that?
Yeah. And you were such a contrarian.
I've been known to contradict a few people in my life. Yeah, I mean, if you go to other countries, though, they don't have this kind of propaganda. Like, I live in a country where drunk driving is commonplace, and nobody really cares at all. And the only difference, I mean, there's definitely more people here that get in trouble and get hurt because of drunk driving. Definitely, I will agree. But it isn't this existential crisis that the country is having that's destroying the lives of thousands and thousands of people every year. It just really isn't. It's not the boogeyman that it was made out to be. Not, again, I'm not supporting drunk driving. I'm just saying that that's a form of propaganda. If you're on the left, if you think you're immune to it, you're not. You're not immune to it. You're not at all. Listening to podcasts to prepare for this, other people talk about Bernays. These people, they read like one book and then they think, haha, now I'm smart. Now I'm not people can't take advantage of me now with their propaganda because I've read Edward Bernays and I know what his game is. And it's like, you don't understand how human psychology works. Like, you just don't understand. You can be a smart person and be fat, even though you know it's bad for you to be fat, because it's just not something you can change. You can't change your baser instincts. You can't change your primal instincts and the way you are, right?
You are not immune to propaganda.
You are not immune to propaganda. You are a human being. You are, like, Joe Rogan would be like, oh, well, we're just a bunch of chimps, man. Like, we're just a bunch of monkeys, He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Anyways.
So no one's immune to propaganda. Propaganda is involved in the decisions we make. It's involved in the ideas we have and the opinions we have and who we vote for. Does propaganda make voting not important? Does it lessen the value of voting?
I think it lessens the value of voting for the average person. It's tough to say, right? Like, I'm not really of the opinion that voting matters that much. Certainly, as an atomized individual, your vote has very little importance and very little value, right? But if you are a member of your community, like I'm a member of a small community here. I run a small charity. We build 5-6 houses a year. I have relevant wealth compared to the people around me. People come to me. I've had all the senators to my home here. The mayors have come to my home. I have drinks with them at times. We've smoked cigars together.
Mike lives in the Dominican Republic for any first time listeners.
In a small town in the Dominican Republic. Like, if you can kind of situate yourself in a position of power, you do have access towards the machine, right? You become like, you're not one of these sheep that Bernays is talking about. Well, you still are, but like, you're a bigger sheep. Yeah. You're a lead sheep, right? You're a sheep with 20 sheep behind you, or 100 sheep behind you, or 1,000 sheep behind you. And you can kind of position yourself to move up that ladder, and then your influence becomes more important, right? You have more power as you move up. And so, I mean, if you're really overly concerned about it, I would suggest completely selling out, trying to become the most important part of your community that you can be, like trying to be the most powerful person in your immediate vicinity that you can become. And then you'll have a say in what you want to do and how you want to influence the people. And you can use propaganda for the things that you think are good and the things that you want to see, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a perspective.
It's a better idea than just raging against the machine and being a rebel and being like, oh, fuck the system, blah, 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 blah. And then like removing yourself from the process, or aligning yourself with a faction of the process that is like, do they represent your goals? Do they represent what you want to do?
Yeah, I don't know. You've convinced me.
Yeah. So, I mean, just Jordan Peterson it.
Well, okay. So another question that I had, like, Edward Bernays is he kind of begins aligning himself with the common man, the common person. I hate having to pause when I say man due to living in Canada and the state of the world right now, but. The common person, he aligns himself with that person, saying, we've moved away from fascism and monarchy, and now there's kind of democracy, which is so good.
Just amazing.
Yeah, so like he aligns himself with the common person on that level, and now he goes a step further, and it totally inverts the position of the way the common person sees that first position. And the way he takes it a step further is, okay, so before there was a monarchy, there was, a dictatorship, there was a head person or organization that was visible and known and could die.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah,
there is an invisible, there's a hive mind, and there are invisible, like puppet masters and geniuses who are manipulating, where like the direction of this hive and people don't even know what's happening.
Drudge types who are pulling the rods in and out of the nuclear power plants, right?
Yeah, well, this book was kind of interesting for me on that, because I remember saying that, like, when we were covering Drudge and we interviewed Matthew Lejak, the expert on Drudge, Matt Drudge, I was looking at it that way, and that Drudge was sort of a mastermind. But I do think that Drudge was more practicing. I would call him a propagandist, but he's not practicing the kind of elaborate propaganda that is talked about in someone like Bernays, and that I find like more impactful and more interesting. Like Drudge is not, like you said, he's like a head sheep, but he's not a shepherd per se. I mean, he like the head sheep is a bit of a shepherd in themselves, but like, he's not the top of the pyramid. Yeah,
he's not. He's like middle out. He's not top down. Right. Yeah. So he's a middle out solution. But he does have this effect on big people who need to kind of follow him. Right. So.
But how can the average person who thinks that, fascism, democracy, or fascism, dictatorship, monarchy, all these things are bad because it's top down, because they're being controlled by someone else, and then think that democracy is good when it's the same thing in that regard?
Yeah, it's not just the same thing. It's the same thing, but hidden.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's isn't it Mencius Mulbug who's like, yeah, you guys need to get used to the fact that a country is just a company run by a CEO, and get over the fact that dictators can be good. I totally agree. Like I am pro-monarchy, to be honest.
Mike was just indicating the picture of the Queen behind him on the wall.
Yeah, I got a picture of the Queen of England, sent to us by God himself to rule over us in all her glory. I think it's an excellent point. Like, people criticize things like fascism because, the man is holding you down, the man decides what you do. But at least, like you said before about Saddam Hussein, at least I can see him. At least I know who he is. Yeah. At least I know what the rules are.
Now there's like an eternal hydra there are heads that if you find them, there's going to be a new one that pops up anyways.
Yes. Yeah. You cut down one and 10 more grow back, and it's endless. And it's like, now I got to play 3D chess just to go get milk from the store and figure out what kind of milk am I going to get? So that
wait, do I even want milk? Do
I even want milk? Yeah, I should be drinking almond milk. Oh no, wait, what about the almond conglomerate? Are they pushing me to be a vegan just so that I can buy more fucking almonds? Like, yeah, it's endlessly exhausting. Whereas, like, at least when the Queen was in charge, you're like, all my money goes to the Queen.
Yeah,
I kind of know what she's about. Whatever she says, that's what I got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly simplifies things, right? I think in a U.S. capitalistic society, they like that, and they embrace that. They're like, oh, there's this kind of like propaganda that you could be one of the elite. You could go from being nothing. Look at Mark Zuckerberg. He was a nobody.
Yeah.
And now he's a billionaire. He's got all the power in the world. He does whatever he wants. That could be you. That could obviously be you and easily be you, because we live in America, and America is where any fucking retard can get their chance and become a billionaire if they just work hard and they're just smart. It's such a lie, right? Like, it's obviously nonsense.
Well, I'm not too sure about that, but we can move on, because I didn't want to drift too far away from something you said before and how it ties into something that Andre Nicotina had written on one of our videos in the comment section. you had said, well, if you have a problem with this, everything that we're talking about, the best thing you can do is, just align yourself with the system as it is and try to rise up within it. And then, utilize the same methods to do what you think is good.
This is what I said, right?
Yes, that's what you said.
Yeah.
So Andre Nicotina had said, like, oh man, like I like that your show is getting more popular. It's nice to watch your view counts rise. By the way, shout out to all the people in the United States that downloaded our last episode. That episode has gone gangbusters. I don't know what's going on, if there's some bot that's happening with that, but that episode's blowing up right now. Anyways, he said, well, if you ever guys get mainstream, I hope you keep your principles. And I think you responded to him on the account and said, like, oh yeah, that's not going to be a problem for us, blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm questioning whether hitting mainstream and maintaining our principles as they currently stand is self-defeating. Yeah, it's not something that could happen. I mean, me myself, I would say I've already throughout the course of I think we're on episode 23 right now. Throughout the course of our 23 episodes, I've already betrayed the principles of who I was before we started the podcast. I've already,
really?
Even this episode, I'd be like, yo, I don't know enough. There are so many people that know more than me. I'm not going to go on and spout off. Like, I'm not going to, like, I can't do that. That's just not, it's not who I am. I can't do that. So like, that's already me changing. And I can see how making those types of changes makes people more interested in the podcast. Like, and also we wouldn't even be putting out like weekly episodes if that's the way I was behaving. And that's not, and nobody that you're watching that is putting out regular content behaves that way. So if you're consuming media, recognize that a lot of it is to a certain extent bullshit.
Yeah.
Like if you're watching Tim Pool, who's putting out videos like twice a day, this guy is, you said shooting out of the hip with opinions. This guy is just machine gunning his opinions, and like if you sat him down
in the air,
you take any like ideological, like intelligentsia level leftist or rightist who disagrees with Tim Pool, like put them on a debate stage, Tim Pool is going to get crushed. Yeah, and yet in every video, he's got all the answers.
Yeah, totally. That's totally. But I'm not sure our show runs that way, because I feel like we always throw out more questions than we do solutions to any topic we cover.
Yeah, for sure. But it has drifted a little towards that. We can't just be saying, "Oh, I don't know." Like we do say that a lot. But there is also...
But we can't endlessly be unsure of everything and still have people want to watch what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so some of that is the learning curve of learning how to be, I guess, like a broadcaster and how to be a successful broadcaster.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And like, what if, okay, like the next level up, it's like, okay, we've got, 100 viewers, like what types of changes do we need to make to get to like, 5,000 viewers? Okay, like now we've got 100,000 viewers. What types of changes do we make to get like, nationally syndicated radio broadcast?
Yeah, you know what? It's an interesting point Andre Nicotina brought up, and I responded to it last night. I was kind of tired. Maybe I didn't give it the thought that I should have. Maybe he's more right than I know, because it is true that kind of like power corrupts, right? And like people who gain a following, like they have to change who they are to maintain it.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, maybe it's possible we'll one day let you down, Andre, and I apologize. I apologize for when we have 80 million followers on the Cave of Time, and Andre's like, fuck, man, I used to follow these guys when they were cool.
Well, one of my mottos that I think it can fit into almost any scenario and would still fit into that scenario is just be better than average. Like, I'm not going to beat myself up if maybe I'm okay, like in order to get this job, I see the 10 other people who are applying to this job, and their resumes are all lies. I know these people, and they're lying. They're lying through their teeth. But like, if I just lie on like half my resume, I'm gonna be on par with them. And like, this maybe isn't so cool, but like I'm doing out of all the possible things that could happen, me getting that job and what I've done is not as bad as everything else that could potentially happen with the people totally lying on their resumes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough question to answer. And to be honest, I think if you get if you sit on the throne sits on you. The throne acts on you, right? Like moving towards a position of power has to change how you act. It just has to, right? So I don't know, like, what do you think? Let's say a year from now, right now we've got almost 100 followers, 100 subscribers on YouTube. Let's say a year from now we have 1,000. Like, what do you think the kind of morals for the show that you would want to keep are?
Oh, Jesus, man. First of all, I don't even see us on YouTube a year from now.
Sure. But let's say, like, whatever platform it is, let's say we're 10 times bigger than we are in a year.
Okay.
On any platform.
Sure.
Yeah.
What
kind of morals, like what kind of ethics do we have for this? What is the direction of this?
Well, I gotta be, so right now I don't see anything on the horizon that we would need to change. But I can almost guarantee there are things I don't see that nonetheless are there. So it's hard for me to say like what should be kept when I don't know what would have to be changed. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to look through the fog of war and decide what are the right decisions. Like, how can I stick to my principles? And I think, to be honest, like, I don't really think you and I have a hard set of principles. I think a lot of this show is kind of figuring out how we think about issues and what our principles are.
Yeah, that's what I enjoy about it. And that's why I, to some extent, I do care, actually. Like, let's say if a year from now we only had, like, if we were getting, like, you know, only, let's say, twice the amount of action that we're getting now as far as, you know, hits on the podcast, view counts on YouTube, BitChute, or whatever. If we were only getting twice that, I would probably say, you know what, let's pack it in. It's a bit more work than it's worth. But I don't care that much about those types of things because it is enriching, as you say. It's like, you know, we are exploring things that we're interested in, you know?
Yeah, I think, like, my best answer to Andre would be, like, so me and Jason have been friends for 31 years. And we often spend time together. You know, we've been apart for like 10 years. I've been living in Dominican. He's been living in Canada. We see each other three times a year. And we always get together and we have a bunch of drinks and we sit down and we'll talk for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours about things we're interested in. And online chatting and stuff, it's always been the same, like just to different degrees of consistency over the last say we were in high school, I guess, like late high school.
Yeah.
And so, like, the show is very much grounded in that relationship. And so, like, as long as the relationship continues, it doesn't really seem that we would change that dynamic much. It's just kind of who we are. Like, we are both legitimately interested in things that are novel ideas to us. We're both legitimately interested in being contrarians. We're both legitimately interested in, like, oh, this is an important idea. And we kind of look at it and we're like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, does this make sense? I don't know what's going on. I like, let's kind of figure it out. So, I mean, maybe that's not the answer you want, Andre, but I don't know. It gives you kind of a window into our behind the scenes for the show, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair? Hopefully that's fair. I mean, Andre's not here to comment right now, but hopefully he'll hit us up with something.
Yeah. There was one thing that happened throughout the course of our episodes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it was talking about our target audience, which is just funny because now I'm pulling the curtains behind. I was thinking, like, because initially I was like, well, we can just have everything out in the open. We can just talk about whatever on the podcast and everything. But then when we were bringing up, like, we should really try to think about who our target audience is so we can kind of maximize the appeal for that. And I said, like, this is not a good thing to talk about on the stream. Like, it will necessarily negatively impact, like, our viewership. Like, there will people who will be like, well, I don't fit into that, and then they're not going to come, or they'll not like what our target is, or maybe they do fit in, and they don't like us labeling them.
Like, if we guess wrong, like,
So yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I've changed right there. Like, we're not being totally open about that. Like, we're not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna have the conversation about who I think is the target audience.
Well, I don't know who our target audience is. Like, it's not clear to me at all. So I couldn't even.
I only have vague ideas. Well, you okay? Now you're lying. You've expressed vague ideas to me.
Okay, I know our target audience is men. I know our. Hey!
Cut! You don't want to exclude the women audience.
And lovely women and smart, beautiful, intelligent women who should go out and work in the workplace while their husbands stay at home and take care of their kids. That's our target audience. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I mean, is it? I don't know. Is it selling out?
It's tough to say. It really is hard to say. I mean, in the sense of the pejorative that selling out is, I don't think it is. But maybe by definition it is. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at someone like Joe Rogan, right? Like, it's obvious his podcast sucks compared to what it used to be. It's just garbage. And it's bigger than ever.
Yeah.
And he's completely sold out. And it's like, okay, I mean, we're never going to be Joe Rogan. We're not Joe Rogan. But, like, could we honestly ever say that if Spotify was like, yeah, we'll give you $100 million to, like, just make the show that we want you to make? Like, obviously, we would take $100 million. That would change our lives forever.
No.
You're not down?
I could stick by my principles on that. I think if I was Joe Rogan level and I was, like, as far as my income and how much money I had in the bank, I would not do anything.
Okay, so
I would
like
not do
if
anything
you
I didn't want
already
to do
had
for money.
$50 million in the bank, and now you're going to get an extra.
Hey man,
100.
right now, if somebody like that came to me and said, "We'll give you $1 million to make a show on," I was gonna say like bestiality or something, but maybe I wouldn't do that. I don't know, like pro bestiality, but like I don't know, like just shilling. Removing spices from food or something that I don't believe in but is somewhat like trivial. Like I would be like, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah. But if someone was like, okay, we're gonna give you $1,000 a year to like tweak your show, we'd be like, no, get the fuck out of here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like no, I'm not doing that for $1,000.
But like I'm already doing things that I don't like every day, all day for a paycheck. Like it doesn't really change anything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'd be interested if we could in the future get on somebody who's actually got a successful show, a successful podcast, and just get them to open up and be honest. Like, what changed? Like, what happened? What went on? You know,
but by nature, if they've closed themselves off, they're not going to open themselves up. It's going to be propaganda.
We could get someone. No. We could get someone who rose and then fell, and then is
vindictive and like I'm gonna give the secrets to the keys to the empire.
Not just vindictive, but also like fuck, man. Like I should have stuck to who I was. Maybe it would have worked out better if I was more honest, and like it would have taken longer to build up, but like it would have meant more to me. There's a lot of people like that, right? There's a lot of people who have shows that rise and fall and they go into obscurity. Did you want to? Is there anything else you want to go about with Bernays?
I'm good with the book. I've like while we've been talking, I've been flipping through my notes. I mean, there was a couple things, but it's all kind of out of place right now, and it's not that important to just bring up out of the blue. So I'm good.
Yeah, I have a couple of things too. They're kind of out of place. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I do actually have one thing. One thing that I highlighted in yellow on my notes while we were talking. So, okay, engineering consent. That is the big thing. That is the how propaganda works is engineering consent. That like successful propaganda engineers consent in the receivers of the propaganda. I should have asked for this question before I even brought it up. Okay, like let's say Tim wants to have sex with blonde women. That's what he wants to do. What is wrong about him slipping like MDMA in their drinks so that they are more likely to have sex with him? What is wrong about that?
Well, I mean, he's temporarily changing their state to get them to agree with something that they wouldn't normally do, right?
I would say that they did not consent to have their drinks.
Yeah. Like once the drugs were off, they're not going to consent anymore.
Yeah. So here's the thing, like. The people that are being manipulated thusly, the women who were manipulated into smoking cigarettes and all the people who have been victims of propaganda ourselves, everybody, all the time, all around us, they're not consenting to be engineered like that. Yeah,
totally. No, I totally agree.
So you do agree that propaganda is ethically wrong then?
I do. No, okay, so maybe I didn't express this right. I totally agree that propaganda is ethically wrong. I just think it's inescapable. I just think there's nothing we can do about it. Like, we're in the prison, so we've got to make the best of the situation, right? There's no way. What are we going to do? Like, what solution could you possibly propose to get rid of propaganda?
Well, like I said before, like there is like wielding atomic bombs so that nobody uses atomic bombs. You could employ successful propaganda to stomp out all other propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, but like, we're still going to be at the mercy of the person with the bomb. Who is that person going to be?
Yeah, okay, but the argument that you're making is like, oh, having bombs flying everywhere is just the same as having one
Or,
superpower with the bombs.
okay, so I guess if I'm being honest, like maybe propaganda for something like free speech might be a solution, right? So like if you over propagandize and over support free speech, which I mean again, that's not like you're still being manipulated if you're a free speech absolutist. You're still going to be manipulated. But yeah, that might be like the be all end all to save us against other kinds of propaganda. You just saturate. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. This is so hard for me to wrap my brain around. Like, I don't really have a good answer to this question.
So I was just looking at the chat. We've got Alex Miragliotta. I saw you responded to him from the Clips channel.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
he just wanted to say fuck the police. So
Friend of the show,
yeah.
Alex Miragliotta. Did he say fuck the police?
He did say fuck the police. Yeah.
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 Excellent.
So I mean that was the last thing that I wanted to bring up about Bernays, and I guess we can end
Wait. Did he really say fuck the police? That's not in my chats.
No way.
Is it? Am I being shadow banned from my own
Wait,
chats?
you're probably on top chat. Go to I think live chat. Like there used to be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the top chat censors stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So is that it for Bernays? Are we?
I mean,
are you happy with that?
Yeah.
I feel like it's something we're gonna have to bring up again in other episodes. I feel like this is a big topic to cover.
While I was researching, I was like, shit, this is a very interesting area, and like, there's so many books and people I want to read about. There's entire schools of thought. I'm like, I could picture myself at a university studying this for a term right now. It's like,
totally. Yeah, and I think you know what? I think we might do a part 2 follow-up in the future.
Oh, really?
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should.
Wait, on this book specifically, or?
No, there's another book that he wrote before.
He wrote Engineering Consent. He wrote first one.
The first one's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Crystallizing Public Opinion.
Yes, Crystallizing Public Opinion.
Yeah. So I started looking at that book after I finished the propaganda book. It looks great as well, and it's just so interesting to think these things were written almost 100 years ago.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, that's the other thing is that so how much has this field of thought developed? And so these people, like, it's actually very weird that he wrote these books, because it is not really in their interest to be writing these books anymore. It is certainly not in the powers that be interests to have these books being written.
Well, it's like you said, it's like he wrote it as kind of like a pamphlet so he could sell it to a business.
Yeah, it's almost like we just got lucky that this thing is out in the ether. Like, whereas what this is 100 years ago. It's like we're looking at typewriters, and now there's cell phones, and we don't know anything about cell phones. You know, as far as the technological, you understand the metaphor.
No, it's incredible, and you know he's very Machiavellian too. So have you read The Prince?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of gives me those.
You always used to like that book. I remember. I first read it. Go ahead.
I want to reread that. I haven't read it in 15 years, maybe longer.
Yeah, I read it. I think last like 8 years ago or so.
Yeah, you know, so he kind of gives me the Machiavellian kind of vibe where it's like, oh, it's not good or bad. This is just the way it is. And, you know, do you want to be a good prince and take advantage of it? Or do you want to let somebody else come in and rule you? It's just it's kind of a sales pitch. It's very Machiavellian, right?
Yeah. I'm just on the fence of whether or not people like him and ideas like him could actually be stamped out. But if they can't, then use the magic. I'm saying, like, maybe we're better without magic. But, you know, if magic is, you know, going to exist, then I guess
that's kind of interesting, because it seems like scientific literacy among a community, like if you actually had more people into science and psychology and understood these kind of things, it seems like a lot of the propaganda would become useless. I do feel that way. Like a lot of, if you had a higher educated population that understood this, I do feel like a lot of it would not become useless, but have to adapt and become much more complicated.
That's what I would say. And that's what I was bringing up before. Like, I think it has become more complicated in ways that we are not aware of.
Well, certainly when you look at big tech and how it ties in, and how like social media companies keep you addicted to using technology. So like you are addicted to your Facebook feed, your Instagram feed, your Twitter feed, your Reddit feed. Like you are literally addicted because they hired psychologists to design a platform that would keep you going back over and over and over and over again. You're literally begging these propagandists to give you more. Give me more, give me more, give me more. Please, please give me more. It is really, really quite interesting. And again, like,
go on.
Well, I think we should revisit this. It's just like, these are kind of topics we go into over and over again. Censorship, control of the invisible governments, things like this. I feel like this is going to come up again in our conversations. We might want to do another episode where we get an expert on this. It would be nice to talk to someone.
That would be good. I do want to get, like, because we've had, I would like to get someone more in the Michael, or rather Matthew Leshak sphere, where it's respectable people who are not so out there. Not that we don't respect our other guests, but we've had some out there guests. It'd be nice to have just for brevity's sake, a regular person who like knows their shit. Yeah.
Normie. We want a normie.
Not necessarily a normie, but yeah, sure. For brevity's sake, a normie.
Yeah. I understand what you mean. We want somebody who is palatable to the mainstream, who can cover this with a certain air of professionalism and authority that we just don't have. You know, an expert.
Yeah, it'd be great to get someone like Bernays on the show. Although I don't think he would want to. But I mean, obviously he wouldn't. But even if we were like had 1 million followers, I don't think he still would not want to.
I don't think he's done interviews since like 1995 or something.
He died in 1980. He died in 1995. Oh, you're joking. You're okay. Okay, I'm a little slow, I guess. Yeah, that took me a second. All
right. Do you want to? Hey, how about this? Can we do a 5-minute bathroom break, while you throw some music on, and we can do the grab bag after that?
Yeah. I mean, do you have many things for the grab bag? Because I was just going to mention 1 or 2 things real quick, but I don't have anything else.
Yeah, I think we could do like 20 minutes or so.
Okay. Yeah. I'll put the song that I was going to put on the closer then.
I've been loving the music you've been throwing on lately.
Well,
just loving it.
I mean, like. And by the way, to the audience, like, comment wherever you're watching if you've got like artists that would be willing to lend us their music, and we'll shout them out in the description or whatever, and on our show. But it's hard to find the time to reach out to artists, so I'm gonna play an artist that, if you do watch on YouTube, you can check out. Like, our trailer has this song on it. This is by Ian Decker. The song is called Something About Vaporwave. That's what it's called. Yeah, Something About Vaporwave. Here we go.
All right, taking a break.
Oh, and it's loading. All right, you back?
Yeah, you back?
Yeah, let me cut the music. Yeah, that was Ian Decker. You can check him out on YouTube. Exactly how you would think it would be spelled. IAN space DECKER. And I'll try to remember to put a link in the description. Yeah, so what do you have at the grab bag?
Okay, we have to talk about the debate, the Joe Biden Trump debate.
Okay.
Like this is the. I mean, I guess we touched about it in a bit of the podcast, but like, this is arguably the worst debate ever in terms of American history, in terms of like tone and just what was going on. Like, zero policies were put forward. Basically, we've got the president of the United States fighting with the moderator and the ex-vice president of the United States of America, basically just like drunkenly arguing with each other for 2 hours, I guess. Like there's nothing of substance being put forward, nothing about their policies and what they want to do with the country and which direction they want to move the country in. You've got the moderator asking over and over again Donald Trump to denounce white supremacy, and will he, telling the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by.
I mean, that was the big takeaway from this debate. If you've been following in social media, mainstream media, that was number one trending. Well, that's another funny thing is I don't understand why, but Twitter was manipulating the trends on that one. And if you looked at the amount of tweets that were happening with white supremacy, with Proud Boys, it was far surpassing anything else. But on the trending list, they put it at like number 19 against like all these things that were in like, the tens of thousands of tweets above it.
Yeah, and okay, so you got that. You've got Amazon banning sales of shirts that say stand back and stand by. And now you've got Gavin McInnes, the founder of the Proud Boys, suing Joe Biden.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, he is suing Joe Biden for, this came out last night, actually. I saw it like midnight. He is, maybe it came out earlier in the day, but he's basically suing Joe Biden for, what's it called? Like
defamation?
Defamation, yeah, something like that. And he's like, fuck this. The only way to deal with this problem is to get litigious. They are calling us Nazis. They're calling us white supremacists. And this is the modern day N-word. Like, we are persona non grata after we get this label.
I mean, I'm sure you haven't looked into this too much, but do you know, like, because as far as I know, Joe Biden never called them white supremacists.
Yeah, as far as I know, that's true too. But he said clearly that he's suing Joe Biden. Like, the title was suing Joe Biden. I assume it's going to be like a lawsuit that blankets
sounds
like a whole bunch
Mike, it sounds like propaganda.
Propaganda. Yes, it totally sounds like propaganda. But fucking hell. What it reminded me of is how Scientology uses litigiousness to keep control of things, where if somebody goes against them, they sue them into oblivion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but McInnes doesn't have that kind of firepower.
No, he doesn't have billions and billions of dollars behind him. But, I mean, he does have a growing empire, and if he wins a couple of lawsuits, it might throw him into that stratosphere.
Yeah, like, well, that's why I asked, did Joe Biden actually ever call him a white supremacist? Because it doesn't sound like he has any chance.
As far as I know, Joe Biden specifically has never called him a white supremacist. As far as I know. I mean, our audience is smarter than I am. I'm sure they'd be able to look it up and find it. I'm sure someone would remember. But as far as I know, I don't have that information in my brain as it ever happening. But what did you watch the debates? Yeah. What was your takeaway from the debates?
I thought they were all right. Honestly, that was my opinion. I thought they were all right. Like, I was very interested in what was going to happen going into it. I wouldn't necessarily say I had high expectations. I thought that maybe they were going to be very bad, but I was very interested in the outcome of them. It was mildly entertaining. And that's really all I would say about it. To be honest, I do actually agree with the mainstream media to some extent. Trump came off as a bit of an unappealing jackass to me a bit. Like, I do wish he kind of shut up, to be honest, some of the times, as Joe Biden was telling him to do.
Do you think Joe Biden won the debate?
One of the things that nobody has really mentioned, I don't think, Joe Biden seemed extra creepy in that debate. Like, he looked scary. He looked like, what was that character that Jim Carrey played on Fireman, in Living Color, Fireman Ted or something? Fire Marshal Bill? Fire Marshal Bill, I think it is. He looked like that. Like it was, I mean, I guess he always kind of looks like that, but it seemed to be heightened.
It's funny you say that, because I think Jim Carrey today is going to play Joe Biden on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, no way.
Maya
That's
Rudolph
funny.
is going to be Kamala Harris.
No way.
I think so. I think I saw that in the news.
So the top dogs at SNL, okay, they see what I see.
Yeah. I agree. Joe Biden kind of like, I thought he held his own, to be honest. Like, I know I've expressed support for Joe Biden in the past, mild, lukewarm support, albeit, but yeah, I think he kind of held his own. It's pretty obvious that Trump tried to steamroll him, just kind of like knock him down over and over, get him upset, get under his skin. And I think Joe Biden kind of came off as like the bigger man in the debate. I don't think the debate really changed many people's opinions on either candidate. Like, I think if you're a Trump person, you're going to be like, well, Trump came off strong, and yeah, he might have looked like a bit of bully, but like Joe Biden looked weak. And if you're a Biden supporter, you're going to say like, well, Trump came off as kind of an asshole, and Joe Biden came off as measured and more reasonable, and his outbursts were kind of reasonable and whatever. Do you think the debates are going to have a huge impact on the election?
Yes.
So I was reading that the viewership for the debates is way down, and people are not tuning in as they were in the 2016 election.
I don't know where you read that. This was like the second highest rating television event ever.
Oh, really?
Where did you read that?
I can't remember off the top of my head, and it may be wrong. Maybe it was just a spurious source. Maybe it was something, but yeah, I was under the impression that not a lot of people were tuning in. Certainly that most people tuned out after the first 15 minutes or half hour. And
I'll look it up right now, so we're not talking.
Yeah. Please do. The other thing
73.1 million viewers. I know they were estimating higher. There was an estimate of like 90 million before that, and so it's more than triple the audience of this year's Oscar. So the only thing that really overshadowed it was the first debate of 2016. That's really it, which drew 84 million.
And that's not a huge overshadow, I guess.
No.
Okay, so I take that back then. I was incorrect. Yeah, I mean, mainstream media definitely seems to be downplaying the debate. There's talk about not doing any more debates now. Trump's got COVID, and nobody wants to even have a fucking debate anymore, apparently.
Well, nobody did to begin with. I mean, on the left, nobody did to begin with, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of pose the question to you. Do you think I already asked you, do you think the debates matter? You said yes. What if one of the parties pulled out of the debates? Because it's totally possible to see before that the liberals maybe didn't want to debate. And you were saying off air that maybe the liberals would say things like, well, Trump is unreasonable. We can't have a clear debate with him, so we're just not going to have them. But now that Donald Trump has COVID, it might be the Republicans who are like, well, his health won't allow him to debate, or we don't know what's going to happen.
So that's another thing. We were talking about the propaganda, the theories of what propaganda elements might be involved in Donald Trump's announcing he has COVID-19. And one of the theories is now he'll be able to get out of debates. Donald Trump does not want to get out. If you believe the polling at all, the person who wants the debates to happen the most out of anybody on this planet right now is Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, yeah, totally. He wants to get his voice out to
he
as
has
many
nothing.
people
He
as
has
possible.
not. If you believe the polls, he has nothing to lose. Joe Biden is the one who has something to lose right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I got nothing. I got no fucking content. I totally agree with you. I thought we were gonna have more of a disconnect there, but yeah, totally. Yeah. Is there anything else you had for the grab bag?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it's my girlfriend's birthday month, and one of the things I got her was this. Very popular on YouTube. I'm actually trying to hide my nails because I need to clip them. So let me carry it in a way such that I hide my nails. Can you see what that says?
Ass, what? Liquid ass? Fart spray.
It's liquid ass fart spray. This is a popular thing on YouTube. Like I like watching people like play around with this liquid ass stuff and all the different pranks you can play. Man, it smells fucking terrible. My girlfriend's terrible at pranks with it. Like we've tried to play pranks on people, and she just ends up like just spraying it next to their ear, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh God, it smells terrible." And it's like, what? But yeah, maybe I'll take a whiff live on air just to have some like very lowbrow content right now. It's been like a week or two since I smelled this. Oh. Oh man.
Okay, so we were talking about this before. I did want.
Yeah, go on.
I did want to ask you. Future shows. Are we gonna do like a hot chip challenge or something like that?
I mean, I was hoping to do stuff like that, but like, it's so off-brand for what we've been doing. I don't know if it's like valuable to do it. Maybe if we can shoehorn it in or make it somehow relevant. Like we do a hot chip challenge while watching a debate or something.
Yes. I was gonna say it's got to be something like that. It's like, okay, so like we're gonna debate somebody about a topic, but we both have to take a hot chip before we start the debate.
And no milk. Yeah,
no milk, no water. Like you can't leave. You just have to sit there. And then we do debate.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. I mean, we've had obviously our now most famous podcast download ever was the Joe Biden debate. I
don't know. There's something going. There's something fishy going on with that. Also, at the same time, on the exact same day, BBC manually reviewed our pedophile episode and put a copyright claim on it for total fair use that we used, or fair usage of one of their clips. Very, very weird. This was not an. Yeah, I don't want to rant too long about that. It was not automated. It was not YouTube like just doing this on automatic. This was weeks later. I get an email saying there was a manual review done by BBC Studios, and they claimed the fucking.
It's like somebody reported us to the BBC or something. Like what? How the fuck did that even happen?
It makes all the theories I come up with are equally unlikely.
Yeah. I have no idea this happened. Fucking hell. But okay, so there's that. There's like a couple of show opportunities. I don't know like where we're going to go in the future right now. I don't know what you have on your mind for upcoming episodes. There is the Dictator's Handbook that I definitely want to read eventually and go into that.
Oh, I thought you already read it.
I have read it, but I wanted you to read it as well, and then we go into it.
Oh yeah, I'll look into that.
I have a friend of mine. He's a homosexual. His name is Brian. Shout out to Gay Brian. He wants to come on the show and give us kind of like a leftist point of view to a lot of the things we've been saying.
Like what specifically?
I think our views on trans people. I think he wants to revisit.
What are our views on trans people?
Well, we've done views on transracialism.
Oh, you mean transracialism? Oh, okay,
yeah. No. So like we've done views on transracialism, and then I think we could do an episode on transgenderism, and get into that. There's a cousin of mine. I've talked to him. He has a show called The Unusual Show, and they cover things like the Free Wales Army, or like they'll cover like the Vietnam tunnels that they had during the war and the people that fought in them. They cover like UFOs and stuff. They want to talk to us. Him and his buddy have kind of leftist ideas on politics, so I think we could do something there.
Wait, sorry, what are these tunnels that they covered before? Sorry.
There's it's a great episode. If you want to go listen to it, the Unusual Podcast. Basically, during the Vietnam War, there's all these like tunnels, guerrilla tunnels that people dug through. Yeah. And the people who fought in them and like what happened to them and like
those tunnels are so cool. Yeah, I guess that's a topic for another conversation, I guess. But that sounds like they might be a good idea because we really need to start planning our Halloween episode. I know some people.
Yes. Yeah. Great idea.
So I know some people. Like I used to know some people who are now doing this. It's not true crime. It's like a kind of supernatural true crime type thing where they're covering like more like ghost stories and stuff. Not that I'm denigrating that. Like, that's totally cool if they ever listen to this. But I really thought there would be a cool crossover if we could find something in common, like Mitchell Heisman's Suicide Note, which we're both familiar with. I don't know if you remember. I know that you have in the past been familiar with that, but do you know what I'm talking about?
I can't remember.
He wrote like a tome, like a 500-page, maybe even longer Suicide Note, and it just goes through all these different reasons of why he's killing himself, and he interviews Harvard professors for this note.
Oh, really?
And he goes through world history. I showed it to you. Honestly, it was probably in university. I showed it to you. But I felt like that was maybe something we could get into for the Halloween episode. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, maybe we should do most of this off air, but I mean, we've got. Would you know when the next debate is? It's in like 14 days or something, right?
Who knows what's going to happen with this COVID-19?
Yeah. So I mean, like, we've got. I just want the listeners to know we've got some good shit coming up. Like, we've got some great content. Like, we're working behind the scenes pretty hard to get some good guests. Debates are back on the ticket. We got to reach out to our last guest because he
Fractured Logic or
Fractured Logic.
Was it Fractured Logic? Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
Logic wants to have a debate about sex before marriage. Like, I will take that debate, and I think we need to start challenging more people to debates. Like, I totally think
yes. Okay, I was thinking about that earlier today. So, like, modern day debate, like, we were supposed to have a guy come on and debate from modern day debate, right? They do double headers all the time. If we find something that both you and I agree with, that we could go on. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
We should totally, like, get in contact with them, see what their, like, schedule looks like, see if there's any topics.
Or perhaps, like, I mean, like, they're getting pretty busy. They're getting pretty busy. If we could come to them with a topic, they might be down with that. Yeah.
I think we should propose something for sure. But yeah, I mean, like, lots of good content coming up. Rachel Dolezal's been in touch with me. She's sending me a piece of artwork.
Okay, so you got it commissioned. You got it coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then once that's done, I'm going to commission a piece for the Cave of Time that's going to go in the bar. I'm moving back to the bar. I can't smoke cigars in my office anymore because my whole office just reeks of fucking cigars. That's why today I'm smoking freedom sticks for women, just to support all the women voters and all the women in my life.
Very feminist move. Very pro-women move.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually want to do a feminism podcast. I want to get a good feminist on because I think that in the Dominican Republic, I am a feminist, and in Canada, I am not. And I want to get into that with a bunch of people. Yeah. So I want to get into maybe not debate, maybe just open forum conversation kind of stuff. But yeah, there's lots of stuff rolling around in the noggins of the Cave of Time. We've got lots of content coming. Is there anything else you wanted to go over?
No, I'm good. I'm just right now just scrambling because I already played the song I was gonna play for the outro. So I'm just gonna play a random song from the same artist that made our intro and original outro music. I'm just gonna pick a random one.
Also, a friend of mine I'm trying to get on the show, he used to live in Venezuela, and he is now a Donald Trump supporter. And we want to have that conversation about capitalism versus communism. Everyone loves that. Hot ticket. What do you think about that, Jay? You think that's a good conversation, or are you look kind of
I mean, it's pretty normie tier, but yeah, we could definitely do that, yeah.
Well,
we do need content like that.
Pretty normie tier. I don't think so, man. Like, you think it's too Steven Crowder-ish?
Capitalism versus communism. It's like step one of being on the internet.
Marx versus Donald Trump.
Well, that's a bit cooler.
Yeah, well, he's a good guy. He's an educated guy. Be nice to have him on. And he actually used to live in Venezuela, and his family had to flee because of, what happened. They were kicked out. So it's an interesting story. Yeah. Shout outs to Andre Nicotina, Alex Margliotti.
Shout out to the entire United States of America for downloading so many of our last episodes.
Yeah. Every single person in the United States downloaded our podcast yesterday.
All right, man. On that note, I'm already playing the outro, so.
Sweet.
Until next time.
This is the Cave of Time.
Oh, and the way the audio is, you got to mute yourself right now.
Oh, okay.
Peace.